We are live.
Oh, hey. Okay. Can you listen closely or to anyone who is listening? And let me
Your
know.
sound is shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Are you using your good microphone?
Yeah. Let me double check.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this live episode of the show. It's been so long.
Is now any better?
Yeah, a
Oh,
lot
I
better.
see why. Hang on. Hang on. Okay, but also, my neighbors, I think they like rehearse for their band in the basement, and like it's a like we can hear them.
Okay.
So just listen for a second.
Hmm.
Can you hear?
No.
Great. They're playing I Feel Good by James Brown right now.
Cool song.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready to go?
Yeah, I don't think we're live.
We definitely are.
Well, on the YouTube page, we're not live.
Well, Chris just said it's been way too long.
Well,
I,
maybe he can. Oh, right. We haven't. But you just typed hello.
uh, well, it says that we're live. Those of you in the chat room, can you let me know if you can hear me?
And if you can hear my neighbors.
Oh my God. Maybe we just don't have to start the show today. Yes, you are live. I know we're live. Brian, this is live. People are watching us.
It just
and you're
went
like
live.
so boring. We are not the best fantasy hockey podcast
Best
right
fantasy hockey podcast. 123, 321. Or is it 123?
Can we start?
321.
Oh my God.
I'm just stalling.
Why?
I don't know.
You come late and then you stall.
Well, it's been a day, that's for sure.
You could have taken an Uber. You didn't have to wait with your car.
Well, I had to wait to get it towed, and
You're two people, right?
Yeah, but I didn't want to make Josie wait.
Nice guy. Okay. You wanted to make all the listeners here wait.
No, that's not what I wanted to do. What's the latest FanDuel copy you have?
Okay, I'm gonna start.
Is it 10-9-17?
I don't know. Just it's fine. Okay, ready?
Uh-huh.
New year, new me. Yeah! Yes! Thank you, everybody, for joining us to our first episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast of 2018. I'm your host. We're the best fantasy hockey. Oh, that was terrible. I forgot how to do it. It's been so long.
No.
I'm going to start over. New year, new me. Yes! Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who own Erik Karlsson in their keeper pools. I'm your host, Eli Dabrowski. With me, as always, the fantasy hockey robot, the maestro of the matchup, the player projection pundit, the ad drop ace, Brian Com.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everyone. It's really hard for you to lead that way because my initial thought is no, I'm not. But for the sake of this show and our credibility, yes, I am. I am ready to go for another calendar year of fantasy hockey. Thanks for coming back with us. We missed you. Is that not okay?
Oh, sorry. One sec. Oh, first mistake. Wait, what? Wait, so you're not the maestro of the matchup? Why not? Or how are you doing in your leagues?
I guess no. I feel like I'm doing okay in my leagues. It's a lot to put on me. It's a lot of pressure when you put those tags on. I feel like you're actually describing yourself secretly, like you're the ad drop ace.
All right. Well, we can discuss this later. We can have a whole Facebook thread maybe to discuss who's the ad drop ace of the two of us. But we've got so much to get to. We didn't do a show last week. So this episode is like more than 2 weeks in the making. I've been taking notes for so long. And then it was so hard to come up with what we could talk about in a limited amount of time. So I just put everything, and we're just going to try to get through as much as we can. Before we get into it, of course, let's mention that we are presented by DobberHockey.com, which is the best fantasy hockey website out there. They've been going all through Christmas, all through New Year's, doesn't matter. You're getting articles every day discussing everything that's going on in fantasy hockey, the ramblings, bunch of lists of rankings of different things. You've got starting goalies, line combinations. It's all there, everything you need, DobberHockey.com. Brian, you didn't ask me what I meant by new year, new me. Don't you want to know what my new resolution is for this year?
Yeah, I'm dying to know.
I'm not going to mispronounce any player names.
No, I don't believe that.
Ever again.
That is so impossible, but I wish you all the best.
Starting now. Okay. So let's start with some outjuries. A lot of players have come back. And then, as we talk about these players who've come back, we'll talk about some other players on their team and we'll get into some line combination stuff. We'll give you a smorgasbord of stuff.
Stop. You got to redo the we're giving you a smorgasbord. You sounded the funny thing. Also, did you start your timer?
Yes.
Okay.
We're giving you a smorgasbord of information. But okay, we'll start with outjuries. Let's talk about Ryan Kesler. He made his season debut for the Ducks last week. No points in his first 2 games. Then he had 2 assists versus Arizona on Sunday night. By the way, we're recording this on Tuesday at 8 p.m. So the Ducks are playing today. We won't be able to discuss that because it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, Kesler is going to play in his 4th game today. In total, in 3 games so far, 6 shots, 3 hits, 5 blocks, and those 2 assists in 3 games. So he's like doing everything, which is what's so great about Ryan Kesler. Last year, he had 58 points. He had 186 shots, so over 2 shots a game. He had 146 hits. That's almost 1.8 hits per game. He had 75 blocks as a forward. That's really good, almost 1 per game. So he's a real stud in multi-cat leagues. On Sunday, the last game he played on line 2, same as last year with Cogliano and Silfverberg, who's also on the top power play, just like last year with Getzlaf, Raquel, Silfverberg, and Fowler. Everything looks the same as last year. Is there any reason to expect his numbers to be any different from that? No. Is there any reason to expect his numbers to be any different from last year now that he's back in the same position? Hopefully he's going to do just as well, right?
Hopefully, and don't forget the face-offs that Ryan Kesler is going to offer you. He's already taken 4 in the 3 games He's already taken 42 and won 28 of them in the 3 games that he's played so far. So yeah, if your league counts peripherals, Ryan Kesler can be one of the best Swiss Army knives in your league. Even if he does only manage like a shade above a half point per game, his value exceeds that by several points based on how much he fills every other category. Am I expecting a change from Ryan Kesler's year last year? To be perfectly honest, he's been one of the guys I've been consistently wrong about in the last couple of years. I only got on board maybe halfway through last season. There was that time where he got super hot just about 2 years ago, right around this time actually, and he busted out of the half point per game production. We'd seen it from him for the prior few years, and I said, I don't expect that he's turned a totally new leaf over, and there you have it. Somehow he hasn't cooled down since then. So yeah, I'm not betting against him right now, and there's not much reason to really, aside from the fact that he's another year older, playing now in his age 33 season. But I am all for at least riding those peripherals. Like I said, 45-point pace, still gravy based on what he gives you everywhere else. I am all for Kesler. All the more so that you have an opportunity to open a show with Kesler, which was the obvious one, and you passed it up to tell everybody about your New Year's resolution, which is very important, but I'm hoping he allows you that opportunity later down the road because it's a really easy one.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see if Kesler continues to do something that is noteworthy. We'll bring him up on the show later, and maybe I'll do it then. Okay, since we're on the Ducks, Corey Perry is still out. The rest of the team is looking pretty healthy, though. They ran a first line yesterday of Getzlaf, Raquel, and Antoine Vermette. Andre Cachet was actually on that top line for a couple of games, but seems to have been bumped for Vermette. So first, let's shout out Getzlaf and Raquel, who have both been amazing since coming back from their injuries. Getzlaf has 13 points in his 10 games since returning. Raquel has 10 points in his last 10 as well. Obviously, Getzlaf returning was great for Rickard Raquel, as we knew it would be. Raquel's also putting up 2 or 3 hits every game, so he's a huge bangers and mash stud himself. I'd rather have him than Kesler. Tell me if that's a crazy opinion. But anyways, what about Antoine Vermette on this top line? He's the guy who might actually be available to people in free agency. He had 1 goal, 2 assists versus Arizona in his first game on that line. On Sunday, he also played 20 minutes and 36 seconds after being closer to 10 minutes in his previous 3 games. So it was a huge increase when he got that promotion. Seems to me like Vermette could be a really solid streamer for this week and for as long as he stays on this line with Getzlaf and Raquel.
I mean, is he any better than top line Kevin Roy, Derek Grant, or even Nick Ritchie or Andre Kasha? Maybe Vermette is by a little. It really helps, of course, that he gets to play with both Getzlaf and Raquel, whereas sometimes those other guys I just listed were playing with each other plus one of them. It's been a while, though, since Antoine Vermette has held his own in having any sustained measure of offensive success or driving play. So for now, I mean, we said okay for those other guys, so I'll say sure for Vermette. That top line is on fire, and he is your entry point into that because the other 2 guys are certainly gone in your format. But beyond that, I offer no endorsement for largely continued success. Like, I wonder how long it is before Nick Ritchie ends up back in that spot.
Okay, tough credit for Raquel. Okay, huh? Tough critic for Raquel. That's okay. Oh, by the way, I'm being called out in the chat room. I've already mispronounced the name. Okay, starting now. I guess it's Andre Kasha. What did I say? Kasha? Close enough. Give me a break, guys. But yeah, Vermette, I mean, that's the thing. These other guys, like you mentioned, weren't playing, I don't think, with Getzlaff and Raquel on that top line. So that's such a good pair to be playing with right now. And also, when you say Vermette hasn't held his own offensively, like, who's he been playing with? He's been on, like, the third line all this time. So I'm curious to see what he can do there. But yeah, like you said, we'll see how long it even lasts. Also, by the way, Cam Fowler is finally heating up. He has 4 points in his last 4 games. He started slow after coming back from his injury. John Gibson is up to a .922 save percentage, and he's won 4 of his last 5 starts. This healthy Ducks team can be dangerous, in my opinion. I called it like a while back, like maybe a month ago, when Gibson was in a little bit of a slump. I said, like, just, grab him for now, because once the Ducks are healthy, I think this team could be really good. And now we're seeing it. We'll see how far they can take him. I think he's a really good option in your leagues. If you could somehow still buy low on John Gibson, I'd love to do that. Though you probably can't right now. Probably Ryan Miller is playing tonight. Anyway, okay, let's move on to another team, another ouchery. It's been so long since our last show that we never talked about Mika Zibanejad returning to the Rangers, and his story hasn't been as nice as the Getzlaffs and the Raquels coming back from their injuries. He's put up a grand total of 0 points in his 6 games since returning. Compare that to his 22 points in 25 games to start the year. What happened? It's like a different guy. I guess that's maybe what happens when you come back from injury. Maybe is there something still wrong with him? Also, things are not getting easier for Zibanejad, as this common left winger Chris Kreider is out indefinitely with a blood clot in his right arm. Rick Nash had taken Kreider's spot on line 1 and power play 1 with Zibanejad and Zuccarello, and then Buchnevich and Shattenkirk were on the power play with them. But it looks like, according to today's practice lines, I had to update my notes as I was preparing for this show. It looks like JT Miller has bumped Rick Nash from both spots. We're seeing JT Miller, Zibanejad, and Zuccarello on line 1 and on the power play. Okay, a few questions for you with all of this in the Rangers. What's going on with Zibanejad, of course? Let's start there. As patron Jacob asked, is he now Zijana bad? Would you recommend people hold on to him, or is it time to stream him out into free agency? Like, if there's some not decent options. Like, obviously, if it's a deep league, you're not going to drop a top-line, top power play guy just because he's slumping. But say if there's guys like Dubois or Schmaltz who also are on their team's top lines and top power plays and actually producing, is it time to consider swapping Zibanejad out, or do you think he's going to bounce back eventually?
Okay, well, first off, another pronunciation correction. Kevin Roy. He's from Quebec. We've definitely had this conversation before. It's like green. I won't get too far into it. Okay.
I didn't say Kevin Roy.
I did.
Yeah.
That was on me.
Okay.
Okay. I would never correct. No, of course I'd correct your pronunciation. Mika Zibanejad, not Zibanejad. But look at these contextual clues from before and after injury. Before the injury, Zibanejad was playing 18 minutes, picking up around 2.5 shots per game, a little more than that actually. Since coming back from injury, just playing 15 minutes and getting 2 shots per game. So his rate stats have stayed like reasonably okay, but of course you're playing 3 fewer minutes, not going to be all that helpful. Elon, you also already touched on the fact that Zibanejad's buddy Chris Kreider isn't around to play with him, and those two may work off each other a little better, well, than Nash did in the same spot. And now that Nash isn't there anymore, there's some indication that, hey, the Rangers know Zibanejad. Things aren't going the way they want them to. So the lineup is very much still in flux as they try and figure out how to get the most out of Mika while also not having Kreider available to them. I'd definitely hold on to him. I'm not looking at streaming him out at all because he's still in a great spot and is legitimately talented. 60 points is still a good target for him to hit. So yeah, like Schmaltz and Dubois, certainly some higher end streaming options if they're out there in your format, but still not interesting enough to me to want more than Zibanejad.
Okay, so I guess we'll have to keep track of Zibanejad, see if he breaks out of this slump at some point. JT Miller, though, by the way, he's looking pretty good because he might be in free agency in a lot of leagues. And I think if you could get a top line, top power play guy out of free agency in a deeper league, you want to take a look at JT Miller. He's on the top line, top power play now. There's my dog barking. And also with his goal and assist yesterday, he has a very respectable 27 points in 39 games on the season. That's a 57-point pace. So JT Miller's already been really good. And now he's in the best spot he's been all year. So I think people should go and grab him, right?
Yeah, JT Miller has been doing his thing pretty quietly for a while now. We endorsed him, what was it, halfway through last year, someone who was actually keeping up with a surprise breakout season. And he was already worth at least streaming in for extra games in most leagues. And in his current place in the lineup, he's absolutely very addable, especially if you were the type who made a play for someone like Pavel Buchnevich earlier in the season.
Yeah, I had JT Miller available to me in my Cupful Keep It Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League Division Tier 2 I might add. Anyway, I had him available throughout the season. I've been sort of streaming him on and off of my team. And then just now, as he becomes a top line, top power play guy, happens to be a time when he's off my team and someone else has streamed him. Good job to my opponent. I wish that I had that luck. Anyway, speaking of slumping Rangers, throw Kevin Shattenkirk on the list. He had a power play assist yesterday in overtime, which is great, but that broke a 5-game pointless streak. He only has 6 points in his last 21 games. He also had an amazing start to the year, but he's slipping big time right now. Are you expecting a bounce back for Kevin Shattenkirk, or are you expecting a bounce back for Kevin Shattenkirk, or should his owners start lowering their expectations?
I realize this is a ridiculous question, Elon, but can you remind me, like, where were we disagreeing on Shattenkirk going into the season? Did I say he'd improve the Rangers' power play and be able to continue like his usual pace? And you said it'd be harder for him to cash in on power play points in New York, and that St. Louis was like maybe they were more responsible for helping him look elite than I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it. But from what I recall when we had our argument, you said you think basically Shattenkirk's going to be just as good as he was the last few years. He'd get the same number of points. And I said, I don't know, maybe the Rangers power play is going to be harder to get points because he's not going to be playing with Tarasenko.
Right. Okay. And so far, that argument is at a push because he's still on pace for 48 points, which would be his 3rd best mark in the last 5 years. So not quite peak Shattenkirk, but still good Shattenkirk is what we're seeing in New York. And I think if he's going to bridge that gap from good to peak, he's going to need some more shooting success on the power play. The last 4 years, Kevin Shattenkirk was shooting between 10 and 18% while he was on the ice with the men advantage, scoring between 4 and 8 goals on the power play each year. This year as a Ranger, he's shooting barely 6%, which is a significant drop-off. Curiously, his personal and on-ice expected goal rates on the power play are higher than before, and he still does have 2 goals so far. So you double that the rest of the way, and he still stays good Shattenkirk. He'll need to outplay himself thus far to get to peak, though, and I still think he can do it. Like, I know he's been on a rough streak, but if you look at his pace for the full season, this is about where we'd expect him to be. So it's been a rough patch, but not changing my outlook on him as a guy who you can depend on to get close to 50 points.
All right, so you're not concerned with Zibanejad. You're not concerned with Shattenkirk. I wonder if there'll be anyone as we move forward that their slumps will actually be concerning you. Okay, let's go to Boston now. Another outjury. David Krejci returned to the Bruins on Saturday after missing a couple of weeks, and lucky for him, he got to return against the worst team in the league. According to patron Brad Jay's thoughtful post on our Facebook group yesterday that rocked the world, he said he worked through a bunch of teams and concluded the Ottawa Senators are the worst team in the NHL. And David Krejci got to return against him, and lucky for him, he got 2 power play points, a goal and an assist in that game, along with 5 shots on goal. So yeah, Krejci's in a good spot. Like, it's hard to say if he's on line 2 or line 3 right now, as his unit with Spooner and DeBrusk has some stiff competition with the Backes, Heinen, and Riley Nash. With the Backes, Heinen, and Riley Nash line that continues to roll. Backes himself, he has 11 points in his last 7 games. Danton Heinen has been rolling for a while. Is up to 26 points in 33 games on the season. And actually, I'm looking at today's scores currently. It's mid-game in Boston versus the Islanders. And Danton Heinen already has a goal and an assist. So he's keeping on rolling himself. Even Riley Nash has been getting in on the action lately. He was able to pot a couple against, of course, the Ottawa Senators. And he has 5 points in his last 5 games. But anyways, let's focus on Krejci first. Krejci's still the for sure top forward to own on Boston outside of the Bergeron, Pasternak, Marchand top line? Or would you prefer one of these guys like Backes or Heinen over Krejci at this point? And is there any chance Backes and Heinen can keep their paces up to some extent? So I guess I'm just kind of curious to know your thoughts on these 3 guys, Krejci, Backes, and Heinen. Like, I'm always concerned about a guy like Krejci because he's on the second line, he's on the top power play, but he's David Krejci. Like, he has name value, but I don't really love his spot in the lineup. So is he really so much better than Backes and Heinen, who are rolling big time right now? But Krejci's doing well himself.
If there's one guy you can depend on most to keep up a fantasy relevant-ish pace outside that Boston top line, it's probably still David Krejci. Dependability is not all, though, because his upside is still less than it has been in the past, which sure makes some of these dark horses you've mentioned enticing as ads instead of David Krejci if you want to try and catch fire with them. David Backes is now up to 4 consecutive multi-point games, and Danton Heinen, yeah, he's been incredible. I need to repeat his numbers just to make sure it got through to everyone. Heinen has 26 points in 33 games, and an even better slice of that, 19 points in his last 21. Now, a bunch of those points have come as secondary points, 7 of his last 11 to be precise, and he's shooting at 20% to get a chunk of his primaries too, but certainly deserves an audible pat on the back for what he's managed regardless. And this is sort of a continuation of what he'd started doing last year in the AHL. Heinen really broke out there and was a big part of Providence's Calder Cup run last year with 18 points in 17 playoff games. Without having gone so deep on these guys as a unit yet, I'd like to believe that maybe there really is some legit value for you to find in your leagues amongst the 9 other Bruins guys, not named Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak, that exceeds, at least in the short term, the limited upside that David Krejci offers you. I would want Heinen and Backes for sure in the short term. I would still be okay to drop them when they're cool, which means, of course, that you need to be measured in who you're letting go to add them. But they are all hot enough to own right now. Give all your streaming spots to them, just the way we did with Kevin Fiala, Craig Smith, and Kyle Turris a few weeks back.
Yeah, though we'll get to those guys. They've all slowed down. By the way, Brian, I'd be remiss not to point out Ryan Spooner also, who gets great power play time, and he has 3 goals and 7 assists in his last 11 games. There's just, like you say, like a lot of great fantasy options on Boston right now. They're reminding me of Minnesota last year. Okay, next, outjury. Let's go to Edmonton. Andrei Sekera finally came back for the Oilers. He played his first few games of the season. Also, Oscar Klefbom both went on IR and returned in our absence. So we've had only a couple of games of both Sekera and Klefbom being in the lineup, and it appears that Sekera has been playing on the McDavid power play. So it's everything that the Klefbom owners have been fearing seems to be coming true. But at the same time, you know, it's early. We have to see how things shake out. Only 1 assist in 5 games for Sekera and nothing on the power play. So I'd imagine this power play job is still very much up for grabs. Meanwhile, Klefbom finally seems to be showing some signs of life. Maybe he just needs that competition to spark a fire under him. He has 2 assists in his last 3 games and 12 shots on goal in those last 3 games. So Brian, what's your take on this Edmonton D situation at this point? Who would you rather have? Like, if Sekera is in free agency, does he need to be added at this point? He had 35 points last year for what it's worth. So I guess it's like 2 questions. First of all, forgetting about Klefbom, do people need to add Sekera because he's potentially top line power play on Edmonton? And also Klefbom versus Sekera, who would you rather if you could only have one?
As for Sekera being on the top power play in Edmonton, that's a good reason to add anyone. Yeah, I mean, last year we were talking about Johan Ovitu, weren't we? Or was that? No, that was in New Jersey. Anyway, getting back to Sekera, we're still waiting to see him get up to full speed. Last year, he averaged 22 minutes of ice time. And once he gets back to there, we can have a better take on the Edmonton defenseman situation on the whole. Sekera started low in his ice time, then was bumped up into the 20-minute range, but has been back down in the high teens again since then. So, yeah, I don't think we're seeing full deployment for him yet. Meanwhile, in that time, he really hasn't offered a ton of value. 1 point, -6, averaging a shot, couple blocks per game, and that's with time on that top unit. So for now, I would still prefer Klefbom of the two and think Sekera remains a speculative add if you want to see whether his point totals are going to blossom from holding on to that top unit spot and adding more peripherals from a slow rise in ice time.
Okay, yeah, so just 1 sec, sorry. I'm just gonna wait a second. There's some actions going on here. How's everyone enjoying the show so far?
Oh, some actions.
By the way, Brian, I'm thinking after Minnesota, I'll throw in the FanDuel, because don't forget we started a lot later than 8 o'clock, as I'm sure you remember.
Oh my God, a lot later.
Okay, next.
So much later.
Okay, here I go. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'd prefer Sekera. Nope. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I agree. I think I'd also prefer Klefbom for now, though it is concerning that Sekera's back, but also, I don't know, I'm going to go, as a Klefbom owner in a couple of leagues, I'm going to go with this idea that I'm happy that he has some competition to maybe spark him a bit. Anyways, okay, aside from on defense, of course, on the last episode, I pointed out that the Oilers line seemed to have finally stabilized, and yeah, they've been shaken up. So there goes anything I say. But yeah, on Sunday's game, Pat Maroon got back on line 1 with McDavid and Puljujarvi bumping Lucic, who fell to a line with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Ryan Strome. Draisaitl was with Camilleri and Kajula. So we still have these like 3 lines, all with good players on Edmonton going for a top line. Worth noting that Edmonton lost 5-0 to Winnipeg, so another shakeup could definitely be in order soon. Probably not worth even us digging into these Edmonton line combinations right now because it could all just change for next week. But let's just mention, of course, Pat Maroon, while he's on the McDavid line, is probably worth owning, especially in a bangers league. And keep your eye on Milan Lucic. He's still on the top power play, though, so I don't think you could drop him in most formats. Brian, let's go to Minnesota now.
Oh, wait, hang on. In Edmonton, first off, I'll just second what you said about Pat Maroon there. But also, maybe we've mentioned recently, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins continues to be gangbusters. 13 goals, 13 assists for 26 points in his last 31 games. Those are Danton Heinen-like numbers. He also has 5 power play points, 81 shots on goal. So near or more than 3 shots per game, if my math is correct. He had a pretty forgettable start to the year, but he's on a 60-point full season pace. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins should probably be owned in a lot of leagues. If you own Mika Zibanejad, you should be interested in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
But would you make it the swap?
Yeah, I probably would not make the swap, but I would be looking to add Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to my squad.
Okay, let's go to Minnesota. They're pulling Ducks. They're finally getting healthy. It's nice to see. Devin Dubnyk returned on Friday. He played great, stopping 41 to 43 shots in a 4-2 win over Nashville. Dubnyk's back up to a .918 save percentage on the season. He started, remember, so badly, so now he's already back up to average. I'm sure it'll continue to climb a little bit. We knew he'd bounce back eventually, right? He couldn't have stayed down for so long. He's Devin Dubnyk. He's a solid guy. Obviously, at this point, owners of Alex Stalock can drop him. He's actually been decent lately, but he's the clear backup on that team. The other big news on Minnesota is apparently Zach Parise will make a season debut today. Those of you listening to this show, after the fact, will know how he did in his first game with the team. Also, Nino Niederreiter should be back this week as well. So everyone is coming back to the team. It's going to be fun to see how the lines shake out. One of Granlund, Koivu, Zucker, Stahl, Coyle, Parise, Niederreiter will have to fall out of the top 6. But, that's just how it goes when you have so many good players. Maybe they'll do what they did last year and have like a balanced top 9. So it's definitely worth watching if you own any of these guys to see if anything changes and if your players rise or drop in value. I think one player who you're safe with is Mikael Granlund. He had a goal in this versus Dallas, a hat trick versus Nashville. He had a pointless but 7 shots on goal game versus Nashville again on Saturday. So he's definitely doing really well. It's nice to see him heating up after a bit of a slow start. I'm sure he'll be on the top line with Mikko Koivu. Here were the practice lines yesterday on Minnesota for what it's worth, though again, Niederreiter wasn't involved and he's going to be back soon, but they were going with Parise playing with Charlie Coyle and Chris Stewart, so not the best line mates for him, and then Zucker, Stahl, Ennis, and Eriksson Ek, Koivu, and Granlund. So like I said, don't pay too much attention to that because anything could change. Okay, Brian, I guess I'll stop rambling about Minnesota and actually ask you a question. What's your take on Zach Parise? Many patrons have asked about him as he seems to be in free agency in a lot of leagues. I guess in a lot of leagues, people don't want to just draft someone who's injured. Would have been a nice guy to stash, maybe, or maybe not. Last year he had 19 goals and 42 points in 69 games, which is okay. It's like a 23-goal pace, like a 50-point pace. Not great, but still relevant in most leagues. He was still taking a ton of shots. Do you expect similar numbers from him last year? Is there any reason to think he can improve, or do you think he could even do worse?
Zach Parise last year, he had that 50-point pace. That marked a 3rd consecutive year of scoring decline from him, but it wasn't all bad. There are reasons to consider what he did on the whole last season, an improvement with Bruce Boudreau over the Mike Yeo years, as he saw less ice time, but in a somewhat more purposeful way, if that makes any sense at all. Parise's rate stats from last season show a player who, not unlike Jason Pominville, saw more success in a more limited role. Parise's offensive under the hood numbers last year probably rank amongst his top 3, maybe even top 2 seasons of the last 5, not going way back to his New Jersey Devils days for sure. So there is some hope that Parise will at least throw some shots on net, manage a point pace that touches or maybe even gets a bit above 50 points. And that's upside we're talking about, of course, especially with no lingering doubts this year about his health. And Elon, just before I move on to the next part, so that's my take on Parise. Alex Stalock, Dubnyk is great. Of course, he bounced back. And but we should give Stalock a little more credit. He performed very admirably in Dubnyk's stead. Only a .500 record, but he posted a .924 over 10 games with only 2 notably bad starts, one of which he actually won, which, of course, was against the Ottawa Senators. He finished on the high with 3 straight very good starts, though he only won one of them. So bummer for him in those win numbers. But good for him in his save percentage numbers. Maybe he is a legitimate NHL backup, which I wasn't ready to give him credit for before this run.
Yeah, that's nice. I did mention that he had been doing well, but you still have to drop him, unless obviously it's a really deep league and backups are owned, then he's okay. And with, Dubnyk coming back from injury, it's nice for them to ease him in a little bit and not have to play him all the time. Now they have a backup maybe they can rely on, maybe not. We'll see. We'll have to see a bigger sample size from Alex Stalock doing well before I'm going to be like all in on him being like a really good goalie. It took some time, by the way, but on defense, Jared Spurgeon finally got back on the top power play with Ryan Suter recently, bumping Matt Dumba. Spurgeon has 1 goal and 1 assist in his last 3 games after going pointless in 7. So that's a good situation for Jared Spurgeon. I really liked him. He was in having this slump, so maybe he was in free agency in a bunch of leagues. So definitely, if you're listening to this, take a look and see if Spurgeon is available. I feel like if he is, you should definitely add him, especially if blocks are counted. He's been putting up like 4 or 5 blocks almost every game lately. At the same time, it's kind of hard to recommend dropping Matt Dumba after the great run he went on, but I'd be watching him very closely at this point. He has 4 goals and 3 assists in his last 8 games, but 3 of his last 4 games have been pointless games. Curious to know, Brian, what would you be doing with Matt Dumba right now? Do you still hold and hope that he could keep up this production even if he's bumped? I actually saw that he might be back skating on the top unit, like the D unit with Ryan Suter today. So yeah, you have to take a look and see. Maybe I'll check in right now while you answer and see what's happening today if their game has started. But what's your sense here? Like Spurgeon for sure add, and then Dumba, I'm curious to know what you think. You're muted.
Sorry. Well, my answer is not going to give you enough time to do your research. So if you want to do it now.
Just go for it.
Oh. Yeah, that's my sense. I like Spurgeon. Dumba's been great filling in, but at the moment, I am back on Team Spurgeon.
Okay. And yeah, this game just started. Maybe someone in the chat room can remind me to take a look at what's going on with Minnesota like an hour later when we're near the end of the show. Maybe I can remember to check in. Okay, Brian, let's say you are excited about Zach Parise returning, but unfortunately someone else was smart or not. We'll have to find out and see. Same with someone like Ryan Ellis, who we'll get to in a second. You know, these guys who were injured to start the year, or Sekera, and now you don't have them, but you're excited to cheer for them to see how they'll do, but you don't have them on your team. That's okay, because you can play daily fantasy with our sponsor for this week's episode, FanDuel. FanDuel is a lot of fun because you get to pick a new team every single time you play. Like you're listening to this podcast and we're mentioning how Raquel and Getzlaff are doing so well. You can't add them. You could add Vermette. By the way, Vermette might be a really good cheap daily fantasy option in FanDuel because you're going to get him for cheap and he's on the top line. Just a little hint for you. But yeah, daily fantasy, it's where it's at. On FanDuel, there's new contests every day. Play whenever you want. Something for everyone. Lots of contests to choose from. Starting at just $1. You pick a contest, you choose your team, and you watch your score real time. Brian, we've got our Keeping Karlsson FanDuel League, which is back for sure, running weekly. It's going to be this week on Thursday. Afterwards, it'll be on Tuesdays, but we'll keep you guys posted. But after you listen to this show, if you've listened to this show and it's not past Thursday yet, then go to keepingkarlsson.com/FanDuel or FanDuel.com/Karl, Karl. They'll both take you to the same place to join our weekly league where you can compete against Brian, myself, and a bunch of other listeners in Keeping Karlsson to see who's the best at daily fantasy this week.
And beyond the thrill of playing fantasy hockey in a daily competition with Elon and I, New Year's get free entry into the NHL breakaway with thousands of dollars in cash prizes guaranteed to pay out when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com, sign up with the promo code Karl. That's FanDuel.com, promo code KARL, void where prohibited. And Elon, just let me add it again because it's a different date than usual. You can join our contest beginning Wednesday night. You can join this week's contest starting on Wednesday night. That's when it'll open, and it'll play for Thursday night's games. Hope to see you there.
Okay, Brian, by the way, Minnesota has scored a goal, so it's 1-0. Jared Spurgeon got an assist, so I'm going to be a little bit of a detective. I'm taking a look at all of their players' plus minuses, and I see Spurgeon is +1, of course, because he got an assist, and I'm seeing Ryan Suter is also +1. So Spurgeon is indeed back on the top D unit with Ryan Suter. So yeah, very exciting for me as a Spurgeon owner in the couple. I'm happy to see him back getting that top deployment. Okay, Brian, like I said, like Zach Parise, Ryan Ellis will be making his season debut today for the Nashville Predators. Has their game started yet? Doesn't look like it, but he will be playing today, which is very exciting. A lot of people drafted him waiting for this day, so I'd imagine we'll be getting some questions soon of who people should be dropping. Oh, should I drop this guy to bring in Ryan Ellis? You could tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson. I'm sure we'll get those tweets. I'm excited to answer them. But Brian, first I need to know, what's your take on Ryan Ellis? Like, he broke out last year. He had 38 points in 71 games, including 11 points on the power play, which is pretty impressive because he wasn't even on the top unit. He also averaged a couple of shots per game. He blocked a lot, so he was definitely a really valuable own in a multi Salty Cat League. Do you expect him to be able to repeat this pace this year? I'm always nervous. Just like I said, I'm nervous with someone like Krejci. I'm nervous with someone like Ryan Ellis because the Predators already have Subban and Josi ahead of him on the depth chart. And Matthias Ekholm has been solid as well throughout the year, though he's actually been pointless in 7 now, so it's a good time for Ellis to come back and maybe overtake Ekholm at least. But still, he's got a couple guys to surpass who are going to get the top deployment. But at the same time, Ryan Ellis, he's clearly pretty good.
Yeah, he's clearly pretty good. As for what you need to do about him and how he's going to be... Yeah, he's pretty good. And as for what you should do about him if he's available or in your IR and you're wondering what to do based on how he gets deployed, it really is hard to say, especially with such a chunk of the season already underway. So we're going to be watching very closely to see how he's deployed starting tonight. He managed just fine with Subban and Josi ahead of him in the depth chart last year, though each of them did spend some time on the shelf, which probably helps his fortunes a little bit. I would keep your expectations measured for sure. 35 points with some peripherals, kind of like what you'd hope for from guys like Brent Seabrook and Andrei Sekera at the start of the season. Not that they're giving you that at this point of the season. Entirely coincidence that 3 days ago, by the way, I owned all 3 of those guys in that comparison. I still own Ryan Ellis. If you don't and he's available, worth a speculative ad if you're desperately looking to fill a defensive spot or upgrade one, but I wouldn't be moving any like high-end contributing member of your lineup out for him otherwise, unless defenseman scarcity is a really intense thing in your league. Maybe I'm downplaying it a little bit. Like, he should be on your radar, absolutely. I have him in my roster. He's still in my IR. I'm going to try and leave him there for a couple more days until I get a better sense of what I can expect from him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, definitely, if he could do what he did last year, he's worth owning in almost every format. But it's just a matter of seeing if he'll be able to do that again coming in midway through the season. No training camp. All of that might be tough. Okay, speaking of the Predators, Filip Forsberg is on the IR with an upper body injury. No timetable yet for his return. It's kind of mysterious. The main benefactor, I guess, at least on Saturday, was Calle Jarnkrok. He put up 2 assists after being promoted to line 1 with Ryan Johansson and Victor Arvidsson. Sorry, Ryan Johansson. Don't want to get that wrong. Calle Jarnkrok also saw top power play time with those two, and also Craig Smith and PK Subban. So a really great spot for Calle Jarnkrok. Top line, top power play. He was actually already on a nice run before. He had 11 points in his last 13 games. So seems like he is a really good short-term must-add while on the top line and top power play, right? Especially because we don't even know how long Forsberg's going to be out. I assume you're going to say that people should take Calle Jarnkrok ahead of Antoine Vermette?
Yeah, I am going to say that. And Jarnkrok had already been on a pretty good roll, like you mentioned. He had been benefiting from playing with Filip Forsberg. That surely helped him collect some of those points. But yeah, being where he is, top line, top power play, helps as well. 4 minutes more of ice time in his most recent game, pretty much all of which came on the power play. So yeah, I like him more than Antoine Vermette.
I always think you'll give me more time.
Yeah. I was ready to keep going, but then I realized you hadn't asked the question because I'm listening so closely.
Thank you.
Every word you say.
Okay, then, Brian, how about guys like Kevin Fiala, who's now pointless in 4, Kyle Turris, only 1 goal in his last 6 games, Craig Smith, 1 goal in his last 4 games. They were golden boys. Back when we recorded a couple of weeks ago, everyone was loving these guys. At this point, I feel like I'd want Jarnkrok over all of them. I feel like if you're holding those guys and Jarnkrok is in free agency, you're kind of snoozing.
Yeah, I guess so. Craig Smith, though, had 11 shots on goal the other night against Minnesota. That was December 29th. And he followed that up with 5 more shots on goal on December 30th. 16 shots in 2 nights. And my sincerest apologies to Dave K, who would have definitely beaten me handily in shots on goal in the cupful if it weren't for those 2 ridiculous performances that I got out of him, which is why I'm a little reluctant to let him go because he's still in a pretty good spot. Fiala, though, yeah, he's barely shooting. Turris back to about his usual rate. So I guess you could switch the last 2 guys out for Jarnkrok, but I would still like to have Craig Smith.
Yeah, I guess if shots on goal is a category, you want to take heavy shooter and hold him on your team. Also, Craig Smith is still on that top power play, so that makes sense. But so is Calle Jarnkrok. So remember, we called it that he's going to be good. He's already been good. So consider adding him. Another player that's returning today. Today's a big day. I kind of wish we were recording in a couple of days so we could have some news to report about these guys. But yeah, let's talk about Dustin Byfuglien, who's going to be returning for the Jets. Is their game starting yet? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so again, we'll have to wait and see what he does. We talked about him when he got injured. He had 0 goals and 15 assists in 28 games, which is like okay in terms of points, but not really for a guy like Dustin Byfuglien. And no goals is crazy because he was taking a lot of shots. We suggested to buy low when he was injured. I actually did in the cacuffle. I've had him in my IR since I traded for him a few weeks ago. I paid a heavy price, but I'm very excited now to see how he does once he's back. Now that Ristolainen has scored a couple of goals, Byfuglien has to follow suit, right?
Well, yeah, Byfuglien and Ristolainen, they've shared so many past teammates over the years that their fates are definitely aligned, and now it's only a matter of time that Byfuglien follows suit. Here's a tidbit, Elon, by the way, about Byfuglien's low-scoring season, and Ristolainen was there. Now he has so many goals. It's like he's been scoring all year long. He actually has as many as Kevin Shattenkirk on the power play. How about that? 36 defensemen in the NHL have played more than 90 minutes on the power play this year. 27 of them have scored at least 1 goal. Byfuglien is one of the ones who hasn't. Can you name any of the others?
Defensemen who play a lot on the power play and haven't scored a goal?
Yeah.
And are we talking power play goals or all goals?
Power play goals. And I actually misspoke. Ristolainen has 2 even strength goals, not power play.
Okay. I don't know. I guess this won't be too interesting on the show for me to hem and haw about it. Torrey Krug. I know. Justin Falk.
Justin Falk is 1. Duncan Keith another. Brent Seabrook another. Nate Schmidt, Matt Dumba, Keith Yandel, and Will Butcher.
Oh, I thought you said there was like 2.
No, there were 9, and one of them was Dustin Byfuglien.
Cool. Well, that won't last. I've got Dustin Byfuglien. I'm excited for him to get me some points, baby.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. Since we're on the Jets, now we've got Myers and Trouba, who were both jockeying for the top power play spot in Byfuglien's absence. You could probably drop both of them now if you added them when Byfuglien got injured. Neither of them have been doing much of anything lately anyway. Forget about those guys, unless you need the peripherals from Trouba. But you already were saying that you didn't like Trouba. Even on the top power play, you probably don't want to add him. He's not going to get you many points. Up front, the Jets were hit really hard. Top center Mark Scheifele is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks with an upper body injury. He's having such an amazing season, 38 points in 38 games. It's really a shame we're not going to be able to see if he can beat his 82 points from last year. It seemed like he was on pace to maybe be able to do that. But now, okay, Scheifele's out. Blake Wheeler has moved to center the top line. A lot of people were thinking when we first saw that Scheifele was injured, maybe Brian Little will jump up to top line, top power play, just take Scheifele's spot, but it hasn't happened. They just moved Wheeler from right wing to center, so maybe he'll be getting center eligibility soon, by the way, for those who care. And then he's been playing with Kyle Connor, who was already on the top line, and Patrick Laine, who jumped up from line 2 to line 1. So Wheeler, Connor, Laine, still a great spot for Kyle Connor. Patrick Laine was already in a fine spot on the top power play on line 2, but now he jumps up to line 1, so he's even better. Hopefully no one dropped Kyle Connor, by the way, during his cold stretch. At the time we last recorded, we were talking about how Connor was cold. I'm pretty sure I said you can't drop someone on the top line and top power play on Winnipeg. I hope I said that. I hope people listen to me. He has 3 goals and 3 assists in his last 4 games, so he's bounced back in a big way, and he's in a really great spot. He was even almost demoted. It looked like he was going to be demoted to line 3 for a while. There was a big scare. I'll bet you some people dropped him. I hope it wasn't people listening right now. Anyways, Matthew Perreault was someone who benefits from this injury because he gets back into the top 6 as he was moved to line 2 with Little and Ehlers. And another benefactor has been, it's kind of sad that I talk about all these people benefiting from someone getting injured, but it's a big spot at the roster to fill. Another benefactor, Brian, I wonder if you would have guessed this, Adam Lowry has taken Scheifele's spot on the top power play with Connor, Laine, Wheeler, and now Dustin Byfuglien. So people who thought it might be Little or Ehlers, kind of crappy that it ends up being Adam Lowry jumping ahead of those guys. Anyways, Lowry's been taking advantage. He had a power play goal 2 games ago, and he had a power play assist on Sunday at Edmonton. We'll see how he does today. Perreault also, by the way, has 2 points in his last 3 games. So, Brian, which potential free agent, we'll only consider guys that actually might be in free agency in most leagues, which potential free agent do you like better on Winnipeg between Lowry and Matthew Perreault? And then maybe once you answer that, you can try to rank them along with Calle Jarnkrok.
I would take Mathieu Perreault. I'd have him probably just below Calle Jarnkrok, then Lowry, and then Antoine Vermette. Am I too low on Antoine Vermette? Am I being too hard on him? Like, how do you rank this group of players?
I would also have Jarnkrok first because he's top line, top power play. And Vermette is not top power play, but he is top line. But I think I would rather have, I don't know, I just really like that Anaheim line. I don't think it's going to last, though. I feel like Vermette's like perfect for daily fantasy or for like a short-term spot start while he's playing with Getzlaf and Raquel. Then I'd probably rather have him than Perreault. But like if it's an ad that you have to hold for like a week or two, then I'd rather have Matthew Perreault. Does that make sense? You agree?
Yeah, way to go.
Cool. Okay, next team, next outjury, TJ Oshie returned to the Capitals after missing 6 games, went right back to line 2 with Varane and Kuznetsov and back to the top power play. But don't look now, Brian. Perhaps the regression you've been predicting for like 2 years now is finally happening. And I'm sorry to sound excited for someone not doing well, but every few episodes, I'm like, hey, Brian, guess what? TJ Oshie's still doing so well. And you're like, oh, no, it's unsustainable. He's scoring on too many shots or too many goals are going in while he's on the ice. It's not going to last. But Brian, since he's come back from injury, only 1 goal and no assists in 6 games. I know it's a small sample, but is this something that people should start being concerned about if they're TJ Oshie owners, considering that you've been calling it for so long that he'd go cold? Is this just a slump, or is maybe this closer to the new normal? Though it is worth mentioning, the Caps went through a stretch recently where nobody was doing anything offensively. They actually pulled out the big guns versus New Jersey on Saturday. They put Devontae Smith-Pelly back on line 1 with Ovechkin and Backstrom bumping Tom Wilson back to obscurity. And of course, Devontae Smith-Pelly picked up an assist, and he's still on that line, and I think he even has a goal today. So that's what happens on Washington. You grab that top line guy, much like an Antoine Vermette. If you like him, I guess you got to like Devontae Smith-Pelly as well. Anyways, Brian, I'll spare you from asking if people should pick up DSP right now, since I know exactly what you're going to say. You're going to say, sure, why not? As long as he's there, it won't last. But I guess, yeah, he might do something. I'm not too high on him. But I will ask you, do you want to gloat about TJ Oshie not producing lately?
I don't want to gloat. I think I should probably wait for it to happen over a bigger sample than 6 games before gloating about TJ Oshie clearly being exactly the player that I've been saying he was for the last 2 years. But I appreciate the opportunity. I will at least say that I remain steadfast in all I've suggested in the last weeks and months, that TJ Oshie is not actually that good, but he still is better than 1 point in 6 games. So he'll be better than that. He's like, he could be, look, he's a good player. He's just not as good as he's been over the last couple years.
Yeah, that's fair. Note, by the way, Nick Backstrom is sick today, so Chandler Stevenson has been centering the top line. Goes to show you how deep Washington is. They seem like such a good team, but you lose Backstrom for a day, and you've got Devontae Smith-Pelly, Chandler Stevenson, and Alex Ovechkin as line 1. I'm sure Ovechkin wasn't considering that as an option when he signed his last contract. But okay, let's go to another outjury in Toronto. Austin Matthews was out for a couple of weeks, but he returned 4 games ago to continue his amazing season. He had a goal and assist at the Rangers, 1 goal at Arizona, 5 shots at Colorado, 2 goals at Vegas. Not a bad return road trip for him. And this is, of course, great news for William Nylander. William Nylander, who is back on track with 7 points in his last 6 games. Brian, how about let me change my new year, new me thing. If I mispronounce it, I'm going to correct it in the episode and hopefully really soon after. That's my resolution. Okay? But yeah, Matthews returning is great for Nylander. Like I said, 7 points in his last 6 games. I feel like if you're in a shallow league, it's possible Nylander was dropped at some point because he was really cold for a long time. People definitely need to go and grab him ASAP, right? Like Nylander is playing with, he's good on his own. Plus, Austin Matthews is a huge talent, like one of the best players in the league. You definitely want whoever's playing with him, which means if you're in a deeper league and someone like Nylander isn't available, which he probably isn't for most of you listening, maybe take a look at Zach Hyman as the third on that line. He has 3 points in his last 4 games since Matthews' return.
Hyman, a good deep cut. We always look to that third piece on the top line. He's it at the moment. So sure, consider him. Definitely add Nylander again. Nazem Kadri, Elon, did you say anything about him?
No, but how about I'll do it right now? I know you're excited to talk about Nazem Kadri. He has missed a few games with an upper body injury, but is returning today. Before getting hurt, he was actually pointless in his last 11 games. I'll bet you he's been dropped in a lot of leagues of the listeners that are listening to me right now. So Brian, let them know. Do you think that he can bounce back when he returns? Is he a must add, even though he's gone pointless for this long? Or is being on a line with Patrick Marleau and Leo Komarov finally catching up to Nazem Kadri? Like, you can't be expected to produce so much with those guys. Though, to be fair, Marleau actually has 3 goals and 2 assists his last 3 games. He was on a long non-fantasy relevant run before that. So yeah, I guess I'd be curious about your thoughts on Kadri at this point. And then I'll ask you my next question. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
Okay. Kadri is maybe, I think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for, and so is his line in Komarov and so is his line in Komarov and Marleau. Together, Kadri and Komarov have been a fantastic unit over the last couple of years, facing the other team's top competition night in, night out, and doing a good job of it while also getting some points together. But yeah, this cold streak for Kadri has seen him drop from a 40-plus goal pace to just shy of 30, which is about right. That's more like it when you're talking about Nazem Kadri's goal output. I'm still not sure he's gotten appropriate credit, by the way, for having scored 32 goals last year. Kadri scored 12 on the power play, which tied him for 6th in the whole league last year in power play goals. But back to this year for Kadri. Look, he's not converting at the 30% clip he had last year to get so many goals. That's on the power play. So it's fair not to expect a repeat. His even strength number has risen some, and that's helped him compensate. But I think 25, 30 goals is still a safe expectation, safer for sure than 30 plus.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not allowed to comment on Kadri. I feel like I'm always underrating him because I just don't like his situation in the lineup, but he has been good for so long. But now that he's been pointless for a while, I understand why people are dropping him. But I think if he was dropped in the cupful, I would add him, even though like centers are like the least valuable position because there's so many of them. So Brian, I mentioned that Marlowe's on a good run. We talked about Hyman before. I'm curious, though, who would you prefer in free agency between Marlowe and Hyman? I think it's like an interesting question. There's two different types of fantasy owns. You've got Marlowe, who gets power play time, while Hyman doesn't, but Hyman is on that top first line. So which player would you consider more valuable to you on your fantasy teams?
I'm not even going to answer that. I'm going to throw in a third player, Mitch Marner, who's been on fire. He definitely would have been mentioned if we had a show during our off week. Had a wonderful run, 3 goals, 10 assists for 13 points in 9 games, 23 shots on goal over that span. Now he's pointless in his last 2 games, so now it's 13 points in his last 11 games. But how about adding him? It seems like every Leaf is taking turns sharing the spotlight. I might still prefer Marlowe just because I'm more reliably in a good spot in the lineup. But then my next choice would definitely be Marner, then Hyman.
Brian, that was a ridiculous thing. Like, I guess I'll actually take JVR first, and then I'll take like Marner's not available. He's owned in all leagues.
I don't know. He was dropped in a lot of leagues. He went cold for a while. Like this is him the same way that Nylander has yo-yoed. Marner's been the same.
Yeah, but okay, I was saying in very shallow leagues, maybe Nylander's been dropped. Then I was like right away saying, probably not. Anyways, fine. If Marner's available, and that's crazy about that you would take Marlowe over Marner. I would definitely take Mitch Marner over Marlowe, no question about it. I was comparing Marlowe
I was trying not to. Sorry?
I'm comparing Marlowe to Hyman as two like very lower tier guys who might actually be available in most people's leagues. Yeah,
I wanted to throw you a bone and still put Marlowe out there because I thought you had just forgotten about Marner, but you're right. That's crazy. You want Mitch Marner. Although I still stand by Marlowe being a little more reliably deployed than Marner.
I guess he's on the top. He's not really. Well, anyways, whatever. Marner, I think, is on. Depends. It depends what you think about Nazem Kadri, really, because Marlowe's playing with Kadri. Marlowe's playing with JVR.
And Marner's been up and down the lineup a bunch too. Maybe that's earlier in the season, though. We'll be watching. Own them both, and then Hyman is after them.
I disagree. I'm not so into Patrick Marleau. I guess I'd take him over Hyman, though. Okay, let's go to some injuries now. Tyson Barrie is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken hand. He's been having a great season with 27 points in 34 games, a huge blow for his owners. I feel like it happened like really close to Scheifele getting injured. It's such a bummer when these like young players are really like breaking out. I guess Scheifele at this point, but like, Barrie also, he's had good years before, but I was really enjoying his bounce back, and now he's out for 4 to 6 weeks for like blocking a shot. Stop it. We've already talked about this. Stop blocking shots if you're a superstar player. At least Tyson Barrie's a defenseman, but blocking a shot with your hand. Come on. Anyways, the Avs have been fine, actually, even with Barrie injured. They've won their last 2 games versus the Islanders and Toronto. A lot of defensemen on Colorado have been stepping up in Barrie's absence. Makes for some interesting discussion of who you might want to add. You've got Sam Girard, who was on power play 1 versus the Islanders on Sunday, and he put up 2 power play assists. That's a really strong power play unit with Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen. Tyson Jost was actually there recently. So, and then the defenseman, which last game was Sam Girard. Actually, Eric Johnson got a couple of games on the top power play, but I guess since he didn't put up any power play points, he got moved to the second unit. Sam Girard took a spot. No matter. Eric Johnson's still doing well. He had a goal and assist versus the Islanders. He also continues to be a shot, hit, and block machine. So I feel like Eric Johnson was already pretty much a must-own in most bangers and mash formats. Maybe I'm higher on him than most, but he's been like really solid for me in the couple all year long. And even not on the top power play, I would like him. Brian, maybe you could compare who you like between Sam Girard and Eric Johnson. Then you've got even some lower tier guys. You've got Nikita Zadorov. He had 3 assists in his last 4 games and is putting up great blocks and hits numbers. Though if you really just want blocks, here's a name for you. Patrick Nemeth. He had 11 blocks at Arizona a couple of weeks ago and has 31 blocks in his last 6 games. He's just like, it's crazy. And the weird thing is in his like game stretch, you see like 4, 5, 11, then like 1-0. So it sucks for the person who picked him up just for that 0 block game and then dropped him. And then someone else spot started him for all those other blocks. That was like, but anyways, Brian, what are your thoughts on Erik Johnson and Girard at this point? Those are the main guys. Zadorov and Nemeth are, people that maybe you can look at for spot starts, but who would you like better? And do you think Sam Girard is the real deal? Can he hold this top power play spot for as long as Tyson Barrie is out?
Okay, well, first off, it looks like Hockey Reference's pronunciation guide, which I've been consulting lately, has Patrick Nemeth. Nemeth.
Oh, so the TH is pronounced T?
Yeah.
Oh, this is hard, man.
That's tricky. I just think it was so easy for you to start with Kessler, and you really, really set the bar too high.
Well, we've corrected it now. Patrick Nemeth. Sure. Block machine.
He's Swedish.
Okay.
All right. So what do you want to know? Okay, Barrie, Erik Johnson, Samuel Girard. I'll step in around there. What I'd love to do, like between Girard and Johnson, which one I would love to own most, I would much prefer to combine them into one player, have them share a roster spot, because they each have one key thing that the other lacks. Girard has the offensive upside, and Erik Johnson has his peripherals. So Girard has somehow managed a shot per game only as a member of the Avalanche. A lot of zeros in the shots on goal column on his way to getting there. I've actually added him over the past month or so, and like if he doesn't score, he's not doing anything for you. Wasn't scoring often enough. Now he is in a better position to do that, but I feel like I need to see more before I'm ready to commit to 0 contributions in the case that he doesn't score. And of course, Erik Johnson continues to fill each category in a pretty reasonable way. I guess since he's keeping pace in points lately, I would prefer Erik Johnson of the two. And then what do you think? Should I talk about Tyson Jost?
Well, no. Okay. So, but Sam Girard, fine. Like, even just in terms of like, do you think he's good and like can hold that top power play spot?
Yeah, like I think there's a chance. I feel like the Avalanche made a real big deal of acquiring him and making him one of the centerpieces of the Duchesne trade. He seems to be the heir apparent to Barrie, so I think maybe he doesn't hold it forever if it doesn't work out, but I think he gets a run so they can at least see what he can do. And you're right, anyone playing on that top unit, that's a very good top power play unit to be a part of.
Yeah, and so like you were just hinting at, another guy on that top unit right now is Tyson Jost. Well, though it should be mentioned, he's there, I think, because JT Compher, who we mentioned recently, he's injured. So that's what opened up the spot. Yeah, Tyson Jost on the top power play. He had 6 shots versus the Islanders. He played 17 minutes and 14 seconds in that game, where he'd been lower than 10 minutes of time on ice the 2 games before. So Compher's injury is really opening up a spot for Jost, both at even strength and on the power play. What do you think of him?
Lots of buzz has always surrounded Tyson Jost, who was 2016's 10th overall pick. Nice to see him get more minutes. I'm kind of annoyed that to date, he's averaged less than 13 minutes of ice. Like maybe Tyson Jost would be better served by getting big minutes in the minors. Of course, there's the chance that Colorado knows what they're doing and is developing him as they choose and in a way that's going to benefit him and them. Kind of hard to say with Colorado sometimes. But anyway, good to see Tyson Jost finally getting some good minutes and worth keeping an eye on. Like we had our eyes on JT Compher already, so why not a blue chip prospect who's essentially stepped into the same spot?
Yeah, I feel like this is like, we're giving you some good names, by the way, for daily fantasy. Like Tyson Jost on the top power play. I'm sure he'll be like one of the cheapest guys out there on FanDuel for Thursday. So I might be giving up one of my roster spots that I'll be using. By the way, Brian, is it crazy that we're like midway through the season almost, and there's a discussion on our Facebook group about how the Ottawa Senators or like Arizona are the worst team in the league? Colorado doesn't even come up. What an improvement for them. And I'm surprised you haven't. I've been trying to trigger you all episode long to get you to defend the Ottawa Senators. I keep mentioning this post about them being the worst team in the league.
I have no interest in defending the Ottawa Senators right now. I have no interest in defending the Ottawa Senators. They have shown no allegiance to Erik Karlsson, so I have no allegiance for them.
Yeah, maybe they should have tried to get Sam Girard in that trade instead of Matt Duchesne. Maybe things would be going a little better for them. Also, by the way, Chris in the chat room is saying that it is Patrick Nemeth with a TH. So that was maybe a silly thing you said, or maybe Chris is wrong.
I'm just going by the pronunciation guide on a hockey website who, I don't know who runs that thing. So obviously I'm going to know. Chris has listened. He's a Dallas fan. He knows that he's watched games that have been commentated on and heard the announcer say the guy's name the way he wants to. I'm just going to call him Patrick N from now on. And Elon, Colorado is doing very well. Guess who has more points between Colorado and Pittsburgh?
Colorado!
They're tied, so it was a trick question, but Colorado has 2 games in hand.
Man, yeah, and Pittsburgh, by the way, let's talk about them now. They're winning today, 4-1 versus Philly, and I'll just take a quick look to see if any of the players I was going to talk about have scored. No, actually, it's a bunch of, like, Ryan Reeves has a goal and an assist? What is happening? But hey, if that's what they need to break out of their slump is Ryan Reeves leading the way, there you go. So, okay, Pittsburgh, Chris Letang and Matt Murray were both injured over our break, but they are both back. Letang returning today. Murray returned a couple of games ago. So I'm actually, though, Brian, I got to say, I'm pretty nervous about Letang now that he's had this injury. It was like one of these things where just all of a sudden, oh, Chris Letang is on the, day to day. It's like, oh, here we go again. Usually, like, I'm still nervous about when I see Chris Letang day to day. I think, oh, there's a month where he's going to be out of the lineup. But yeah, like,
hang on. You have to start from where he's going to be out of the lineup.
Okay, there's a month where he's going to be out of the lineup. But he's back today. Hopefully he's fine. I've got to say, Brian, if I was a Chris Letang owner, I'd wait for him to have a good game or two, and I'd try to trade him ASAP. I'm nervous. I have him in one league where there is no trades. It's our like Fantrax cash league where you just draft your team and that's it. You could either add drop free agents or that's it. And I'm nervous. I hope Letang will stay healthy the rest of the way. But we had a patron, Mike C, who posted in our patron-only Facebook group that he was offered Drew Doughty for Chris Letang in a Bangers league, and I voted that he should accept this trade. I think that's a really good return for someone that I'm nervous about. And Doughty's been like amazing this season. Brian, you voted against that trade. I'm curious to know why you did that.
Well, I voted against it, not because I was against selling Chris Letang, but because I thought a healthy Chris Letang, who it seemed like we were about to get, should be able to get more than just Drew Doughty. Like maybe Drew Doughty plus an extra piece. A day-to-day Letang for Doughty is something I'd have been a little happier to get in on. And hey, I still think holding or trading Letang is always a very personal management choice based on how much risk you're willing to tolerate. Elon, if you waited on Letang, you didn't trade him for Doughty, and then he did have a good game or two, do you think you could get a better return back than Drew Doughty?
Well, the thing is, like, Drew Doughty is one of the defenseman point leaders this year. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know earlier on when I was listing them, he was there, and he's great in the peripherals. So I think he's like a really solid return. Like, he's a reliable guy that's going to get you a good number of points. I don't know. I guess it depends who else you can get. So if you think you could get more for Doughty, then maybe a draft pick thrown in if Letang has a great game. Though Letang has actually been a little bit disappointing this year. Like, definitely not up to the level that we were hoping he would be when he was healthy. Anyways, we'll see. Hopefully Letang is back and healthy. We can check in on him again in a little bit.
Sorry, I should not have interrupted you, but Drew Doughty, you're right, is tied for third in the league in defensemen scoring. Only John Klingberg and John Karlsson have more points. He's actually in like a 4-way tie for third at the moment with other guys that I think have more offensive upside, like Shane Gostisbehere and Victor Hedman, Morgan Riley up there with 28 points. That's pretty good. So you're right. Maybe I am trying to aim like too high because Doughty's had a good season. I'm not saying that it's a terrible deal. I'm saying it's definitely a defensible deal. It could work for some teams. For me, if I'm trading a healthy Chris Letang, I want a little more back.
Sure. Just don't hold him too long trying to negotiate, and then he's out for the season. Okay, by the way, Matthew's saying in the chat room, Letang on a 50-point pace, not bad. Yeah, not bad. But at the same time, not amazing. Not like the 60, 65 points that we were expecting from him if he was healthy. Okay, anyways, Justin Schultz, by the way, is also skated today, and he is back today, I believe. So we can keep our eye on him. I'd assume Letang is getting top power play time. Unfortunately, the game has just started, so we can't give you too much info on that situation. Also, by the way, in this game today, apparently Tristan Jarry has been hurt. I was going to mention that if people added Tristan Jarry with Murray hurt, I wonder if they should hang on for a bit and not drop Tristan Jarry, just because Murray returned on Sunday at Detroit and led in 4 goals on 23 shots in a 4-1 loss. It was a bad game for Matt Murray. He's actually below 900 save percentage in all of his last 3 games, and he only has a 902 save percentage on the season. And meanwhile, Tristan Jarry, he had a great game in Carolina in Murray's absence, letting in 2 goals on 33 shots, and he has a 921 save percentage in 12 games on the season. So Jarry's been much better than Murray so far this season overall. So I was going to be telling people, maybe don't be so fast to drop Tristan Jarry now that Murray's back. And Jarry even got the start today, but now I see that he's injured. So if you still have Tristan Jarry, I guess stash him. But maybe the whole thing is moot now. I guess Murray's going to be getting a lot of starts if Jarry's injured. We'll have to see how serious this injury is. I mean, Brian, right now, the Penguins are out of the playoffs. Like, they're fighting for a playoff spot, which is crazy. That's what I was just thinking. They're going to go with the hot hand goalie. Like, if they're both healthy, they're going to go with who's going to help them win the next game. I don't think they could afford to help Murray, like, regain his confidence if they're fighting for a playoff spot.
It's really hard because, as we just mentioned, they are tied with Colorado right now with 2 fewer games remaining. They sit a few points out of a playoff spot. I mean, you're crazy if you think they can't do it, but also think that maybe there's reason for some skepticism to crawl in, especially as we get towards the end of the year. The Penguins have played an insane amount of hockey dating back to the beginning of the 2015-16 season. They've had 2 very short off seasons where they've won the Cup both years. A bunch of them played in the World Cup of Hockey as well. The good news about a healthy Tristan Jarry is that he sure has seemed up to the task of starting once a week, which should mean that Murray's workhorse workload is less likely and less necessary than before. I don't know that that means Tristan Jarry should start more as the hot hand, though. It's really tough to call how Pittsburgh's going to want to play this if they are both healthy. For what it's worth, Tristan Jarry's record is essentially the same in terms of win-loss proportion as Matt Murray's, even though Jarry's numbers have been better on the whole. Maybe Jarry's done a bit better at being in net for an extra loser point or two. What I've seen out of Pittsburgh so far, though, with Murray's struggles, is that they think Matt Murray is still their guy, still going to be their guy. And my guess is that their priority is that Matt Murray gets back on track rather than Tristan Jarry suddenly becoming the new #1 goalie. So maybe Jarry just starts a little more often till Matt Murray finds his game. Something worth watching for sure. And this is all predicated on both of them being healthy at the same time.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens. Maybe we'll get an update on Jarry before we're done recording this episode. Brian Rust is injured as well, and the Penguins have called up Daniel Sprong, who put up 6 shots in Detroit in 18 minutes and 8 seconds of playing time. He was on a line with Sheehan and Hagelin, so that was his first game. He also saw second unit power play time. So Brian, my classic question to you, who is Daniel Sprong? I hear he's been killing it in the minors. That's the buzz on our Facebook group. Is he the next Gensel that's going to get called up midway through the season and start crushing it? Let's see what he's doing today. Pittsburgh is winning 4-1 against Philly. Daniel Sprong, so far, no points, 1 shot, low minutes. That's not looking very good.
Was that the end?
Yeah.
Okay. Daniel Sprong is a 46th overall pick of Pittsburgh's back in 2015. And you hear right about what he's done in the AHL, amongst leading scorers. And you're right about what you've heard about what he's done in the minors this year. He is amongst the AHL's leading scorers this year. He had 18 goals, 10 assists for 28 points in 29 games before being called up. Everybody always talks about Sprong's shot, which we got to see a lot of in his season debut on New Year's Eve. He had a game-high 6 shots on goal, a game-high 5 scoring chances for, and Carl Hagelin was right up there with him in both those measures, by the way, playing on the same line. They were flying. I don't know about Daniel Sprong being like the next Gensel, but as with Gensel and Sheary and even Brian Rust types, the upside is there if he plays in the right spot in the lineup. He seems to at least have a green light to shoot the puck, so could be a nice add to at least get you some. So could be a nice add to at least get you. So could be a nice add to at least get you some shots on goal while you wait and see if they'll translate to anything more.
Okay, yeah, someone to watch. By the way, on Pittsburgh, Crosby and Kessel are both on cold streaks right now. Always a good idea, I think, to kick the tires of the Crosby owner when he slumps. He always breaks out of the slump. So I feel like, unless you're going to tell me that you see anything to be concerned about with him, I feel like now's a great time to go to the Crosby owner or even the Kessel owner and be like, hey, I'll take Crosby off your hands. Here, I'll throw you this hot player. I don't know who you'd even offer, but I feel like pretty much any player on your team is probably worth it for Sidney Crosby, right?
Yeah, you can kick some tires, see if you can buy him low. Same with Phil Kessel, who is on the board already tonight. Crosby might also be. So that buy low window is closing if it ever did exist.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 assist for Crosby. So, oh well. Too late. Both Cam Atkinson and Alex Wenberg will be out for a few weeks for the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's our next injuries we'll get into. According to Aaron Portsline, at Portsline, the Jackets shuffled up their lines in practice yesterday. And so for today, they had Josh Anderson leave line one, which is kind of too bad. He was in a good spot, I thought, with Panarin and Dubois. That was a really nice line, Anderson, Panarin, Dubois. But apparently Anderson swapped down to line two to play with Jenner and Milano, and then Nick Foligno has been brought up to play on line one with Panarin and Dubois. So I'd definitely be watching Nick Foligno closely at this point. I'd imagine he's been dropped in most leagues. He's been so bad all year long. He's done nothing. But if he's on the top line with hot players like Panarin and Dubois, that's a great way to break out of a slump. I feel like I would consider preemptively adding Foligno, maybe even over someone like a Kalle Järnkrok, though maybe at the same time you could just wait like for Foligno to actually do something, grab the guy who's actually putting up points.
Shocked to hear you say ahead of a Kalle Järnkrok after all the praises of his we've sung this episode. I don't know that I'd go that far, although we do know the upside, well, it could be there. If you're looking at adding Foligno, this is actually a good opportunity for us to mention that the schedules are getting really wonky in the NHL for the next couple of weeks. A ton of teams are playing only 1 or 2 games in the next couple weeks. Only 9 teams for next week are going to play 3 or more games, with Columbus being one of them. And that seems like a great opportunity to take Nick Foligno for a test run. Really not so sure what to expect. He's been tossed all around the depth chart this year, has not been able to get into a groove with anyone. Maybe that's because he's rarely playing with the same 2 guys for more than a few games at a time. So if this unit can hold for a few games, it's a good unit for him to be a part of. And I'm interested to see what he's got to give.
Yeah, I mean, he's only a couple years removed from 70 points. But I know, like, he's definitely not a 70-point guy anymore. But last year, he was decent enough. Like, this has been a surprise this year for him to fall completely out of fantasy relevance. So play with Panarin and Dubois, who are both not only great players, but also on really good runs right now. I think it's a good spot. I would take a close look at him. Okay, next injury, Corey Crawford. He's out indefinitely for the Blackhawks. I don't think we've heard what his injury is. Kind of like the Forsberg situation. Maybe with Forsberg we have heard. I don't know. Hard to keep track of all this stuff. It was so weird. These past couple of weeks, Brian, not doing an episode last week really messed with me because I already had all these notes, and then another week of news came, and I had to sort of update this guy, hot streak guy. He's not even on a hot streak anymore. I can't talk about him. Anyway, sorry. I just went on a little bit of a tangent there. Corey Crawford, injured. So everyone, including myself, rushed to grab Anton Forsberg out of free agency as soon as they saw that Corey Crawford was out indefinitely. And Forsberg proceeded to put up a stinker in Vancouver. He let in 5 goals on 31 shots. And then for the next 2 games, the Hawks have played someone named Jeff Glass, who played well in a 4-3 win over Edmonton, then not so well in a 4-3 loss to Calgary. I don't think we know yet who's going to be playing for the Blackhawks tomorrow. But what do you make of this goalie situation? Would you be grabbing either of these goalies out of free agency for as long as Crawford is out? Out of free agency for as long as Crawford is out, if they are available? Like at this point, I added Anton Forsberg and I dropped him because if he's going to not even get the minutes, like I don't want a crappy goalie that's also not even playing. But also, like, who is Jeff Glass?
Well, Canadian World Junior Championship followers and Ottawa Senators organization watchers are no stranger to Jeff Glass. He backstopped Canada to their World Junior Championship title back in 2005. That was gold medal number 1 of the 5-year champion streak that it kicked off, that Canada will never stop talking about. But Jeff Glass never stuck in the NHL. He was in the Senators organization for 4 years. I think he was a 3rd or 4th round draft pick of theirs. And then he had been in the KHL since 2009 before coming back to play in North America last season. He's been serviceable in Rockford's minor league timeshare, but doesn't strike me as someone to go on a career-altering run, though there is the Andrew Hammond precedent. So we can never quite predict these things, but if I had to bet, I would bet that Anton Forsberg is going to be the one to get the most starts while Crawford is out, by virtue of him having already earned the backup role going into the season.
Yeah, too bad he sucks. And he really ruined my week last week. Like, he came in for 1 game, used up one of my acquisitions, blew my save percentage, and they didn't play again. Thanks, Anton Forsberg. I'm not adding him to my team. I don't care. He can stay in free agency. Even though a lot of people may have said that about James Reimer a little while back, and now he's completely rolling and on fire on Florida. So what do I know? But James Reimer's better than Anton Forsberg, right? Who's Anton Forsberg? Come on. Anyway, since we're on the Blackhawks, Artem Anisimov is on the IR as well. Ryan Hartman took his place on the Kane and Schmaltz line on Sunday. It looks like he's going to stick with that unit tomorrow. Ryan Hartman's another guy who's burned me in the couple, by the way. I remember I streamed him in for him doing nothing, and then I dropped him in an early matchup this season, and then my opponent picked him up, and then he got like a goal and assist. It really drove me crazy. So I don't like him either. And these Blackhawks, anyways, Hartman, Yeah, do you recommend him at this point now that he's back on this line? Like, definitely Nick Schmaltz, by the way, if he's available. I'm very into him. He seems to be a fixture on the Kane line at this point and on the top power play. He had 3 assists in Edmonton on Friday, and he had 1 goal the game before that. So I feel like for sure you're going to say grab Schmaltz. We would have said that regardless of what happened with Artem Anisimov. But Ryan Hartman, are you into him playing with Patrick Kane? Going into the season, we would have said take anyone playing with Patrick Kane. Doesn't seem like that's as obvious at this point in the season.
Yeah, no one has consistently produced next to Patrick Kane the way we would hope they would. Hartman, he's still been okay if you're looking in a deep league to stream someone in for shots and maybe a point, but has not been reliable enough. And he's still not that reliable. Like, if you want to make a speculative ad, so you have him, if he does suddenly become the one who clicks with Patrick Kane night in, night out with Chicago, sure, go for it. Maybe I'm a little more open-minded to Hartman than you are, Elon, but I'm still not jumping or screaming from the rooftops for everybody to go get him.
Yeah, that's fair. So here's a fun one, Brian, though. Who would you prefer between Nick Schmaltz and Brandon Saad? Saad had a nice 1 goal, 1 assist game in Calgary on Sunday, but overall, he's been a half-point per game player this season. He only has 19 points in 38 games. It's been such a disappointment. Compare that to Nick Schmaltz, who has 23 points in fewer games, in 34 games, and that's compared to 19 points in 38 for Brandon Saad. And plus Schmaltz is playing with Patrick Kane, producing. I kind of feel like you have to take Schmaltz over Saad, right? As crazy as that sounds.
Does it sound crazy based on their numbers so far this year? I don't think it's that crazy. Here is the crazy part, though. Brandon Saad is actually posting the best shot and shot attempt rates of his career and the best on-ice expected goals for and individual expected goals for per 62, but he's seeing the lowest on-ice shooting percentage of his career, along with the second lowest personal shooting percentage and the lowest IPP percentage. So a really, really frustrating year for him. Not sure that Snake Bitten even really describes it. We rarely see a player posting the best numbers in like the measures that we actually trust to indicate offensive ability at the same time that they're posting career low numbers in those variance numbers that can take away from the things that you're doing right on the ice. Brandon Saad, even on top of that, is even seeing more power play time on ice, is even seeing a greater share of his team's power play time than any of the last few years too. So it's just really unfortunate. He's been doing a fine job of holding the shot attempt share for it with Taves and either Panic or DeBrincat as the third piece, but the points just are not coming for Brandon Saad. He routinely faces other teams' top forwards, which of course doesn't help, but deserves a little better than he's gotten so far. That said, Brandon Saad, yeah, he's snoozing. I would prefer Schmaltz since he's hotter today, but if you're making a move with the long term in mind, I make no guarantees that Schmaltz will be hotter tomorrow. I could see them being about the same the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's why I come to you, Brian. Like, everyone can see that Saad isn't getting points, but if you're saying that he's doing all this stuff, underlying the points, like getting all these shots and shot attempts, maybe it's just bad luck, and he's going to start putting up some points soon. So now maybe I'm feeling a little better about Brandon Saad after hearing that. He's not the kind of guy that you could just drop for Nick Schmaltz because, like, Schmaltz is hotter, because Saad will probably get added by someone just because of his name, and then you won't be able to get him back. So it's kind of like if you want to drop Saad, you have to let go of him for the year. So it sounds to me like you're saying maybe hold on a little bit longer, see if you can get a little bit of luck. You can correct me if I'm wrong. By the way, last question on Chicago. Who is Jordan Osterley? Looks like he's on the top D pairing and getting second unit power play time. I hadn't heard of this guy. He has 3 points and 13 shots in his last 3 games. So tons of shots, like getting some points lately, getting good minutes. He also had 7 blocks a couple of games ago, but not many blocks otherwise. So don't look at him for blocks probably, but like, who is this guy? Is he someone that people should be looking at offensively? You said you dropped Brent Seabrook recently. Is that because Jordan Osterley has taken his spot on the depth chart?
Jordan Osterley has gone from 25 career games dating back to 2014 to playing 25 minutes the last 2 nights alongside Duncan Keith, the undrafted 25-year-old. Theme here. Out of Dearborn Heights, Michigan. He had been reasonably effective in the minors, but hadn't made much of a mark in the last few years, which he spent with the Oilers organization. He's just one of the motley crew assembled to be role players on that Chicago blue line. Like, how many of these guys could you name before the season started? Forsling, Franson we knew, but did we know he was going to play this year? Ruta, Connor Murphy, Jordan Osterley, and Osterley is doing a good job of doing what he's been brought in to do, which is play big minutes and also please no big catastrophic mess ups. So he may be good in deep leagues to add some peripheral clout to your numbers if he continues playing 24, 25 minutes a night on the top pairing.
So it's Osterley, not Osterley. Okay.
Well, that's what the pronunciation guide said, but it also had the Swedish pronunciation for Nemeth.
Patrick N. Yeah. Okay.
Patrick N.
Keep your eye on him. Add him to your watch list. Jordan Osterley. Let's see what he can do over the next few games. Michael Frolik is another guy who's injured. Let's go to Calgary. He's week to week with a broken jaw, and that means that Jaromir Jagr is back in the top 6. He took Frolik's spot on line 2 with Backlund and Tkachuk on Sunday versus Chicago. He had no points, though, just like in his previous 6 games where he had no points and no power play time. So I feel like at this point, Jagr, like, I'd love for you to say it's time to at least watch list him and see how he does on line 2, though I have a feeling you're going to say he's probably done being fantasy relevant, right?
Sorry, who?
What have you been doing? Are you just in the chat room?
Just for a minute. Jagr?
Like, you know that this show is like every time I'm talking, me asking you a question. Like you can't, I could zone out, but you can't zone out.
Yeah, I forgot that Jagr was a part of this show.
I wrote it in the
Yeah,
doc.
no, it's there. It's there in front of me. I missed it though.
Okay, so anyways, I said,
is he done?
Is he done in fantasy?
Yeah. He's pretty fantasy irrelevant. I don't think, like, you can watch him because it's fun to watch Jaromir Jagr. It's fun to have him if he gets a couple points because, like, there's some extra, like, hipster clout if he is the one getting the points for your fantasy team. But I'm not rushing to make any sort of move for him.
Yeah, it's not as if Michael Frolik was doing so much on the second line. So even if Jagr does the same as Frolik, that's still probably not relevant. The bigger news on Calgary is they've finally shaken up their top power play. It feels like it's been forever. But okay, goodbye Furland. Goodbye Brody. Goodbye Jankowski or Brower or whoever was getting up there. They finally have a top power play unit that their fans can be proud of. They've got Goodrow, Monahan, Backlund, Tkachuk, Giordano. Mwah! That's a top power play. Huge for those last 3 who get on it. Backlund has he had 1 goal and a power play assist on Sunday. He also had a power play assist a couple of games before that. He's always been really good on the team, like getting a lot of even strength points and even getting points on the second power play unit. So I love that he's on the top unit. He might be available in your leagues. Take a look at free agency and see if Mikhail Backlund is available. Then you have Matthew Tkachuk. He had 2 power play goals on Sunday. He has 4 points in his last 4 games, all on the power play. He's loving it there. You got Mark Giordano, who if you drafted him, it was probably for his peripherals. It seemed like his offense was behind him, but now he's on the top power play. He's probably going to be getting more points. He has 2 power play points in his last 3 games. I feel like all 3 of these guys should be owned in most formats while on this unit. Do you concur?
Yeah, I do. And it's such a sensible first unit, which is really exciting after seeing, well, you mentioned some of the names that have been on it in the past. So own them all. Why not?
Why not? Get them all. The one person you don't need to own is TJ Brody. He's a complete snoozer right now. I feel like he was like the only thing he had was like, but he is on the top power play. He's not getting many points, but he's on the top power play. Not anymore. Definitely drop Brody, I would say. Probably even Michael Furland. He's still on line 1 with Gaudreau and Monahan, which is good. It's like a Vermette situation, but he's definitely a lot less interesting than he was before when he was both on the top line and top power play. He was already slowing down, but I was like, I was like, okay, yeah, but he's on the top power play. He's probably still going to be a good bet to get a point in any game that you stream him in. Now, not so sure. Brian, that's it for my injuries and outries. Now I've got a bunch of hot and cold streaks and some line combos. Ready for like a bit of a lightning round?
Yeah, but I wanted to just chime in that both Brody and Furlan needed that power play spot to maintain relevance during their snoozy times, and that spot is gone now, so they're both snoozing. But this was all just a lead up to me being able to say hashtag bye Furlecia.
Furlecia, like Furland? That's good.
Yeah.
Let's get that trending. Bye Furlecia. Okay. All right. So yes, this lightning round, even though you told me before the show that you didn't like my lightning round, you think that it's not lightning enough for you because I have a lot of hard questions in it. But
well, it's the same questions as the rest of the show. You're just like, oh, I've already asked Brian so much. I just want to ask him these 15 other things.
Okay, but for me, like when it's lightning round, like I'm not gonna go like once I name the player, I'm not gonna go over their whole team and like discuss all of the line mates and the goalies. I'm just like,
okay, so you're gonna go less in depth from your side, but expect the same depth from me.
Hey, take your do what you got to do, man. Just give us a one-word answer for each question if you really want. It's your reputation on the line as the ad drop ace and the maestro of the matchup
my
and the
gosh.
player projection pundit and the fantasy hockey robot. Okay. Henrik Zetterberg has 2 goals and 9 assists in his last 9 games after a horrible start. He seems to be a must-own in pretty much all formats again, just like last year. He seems to be as good as last year. Brian, I recall at one point you messaged me saying he was dropped in your Tier 1 division in the Cupful. I assume you didn't add him, or else you'd be bragging to me about what a great ad you made. Are you regretting not adding him, or do you think he's going to slow down again?
I am kind of regretting not adding him, though I feel like I just didn't have room at the time. I would feel worse if I were the one who had dropped him. That wasn't me. So I can at least have that to fall back on. He seems very much worth owning, though. Yeah.
Okay, and then Anthony Mantha has been out with a groin injury. He might be back tomorrow, though. But Tyler Bertuzzi was called up, and he's been playing on the Zetterberg line. Mantha should be back tomorrow, so I'm not sure how that will shake out and what will happen to the Lions. But let's point out, Tyler Bertuzzi, 2 assists yesterday versus Pittsburgh, 3 assists in 5 games overall. I'm saying yesterday. I guess it was Sunday. But anyways, yeah, like Bertuzzi's been good recently. Bertuzzi's been good recently, and like I said, he's on a line with Zetterberg, who's doing really well. So do you think he can stay on this line, and is he worth a flyer? Like, who's Tyler Bertuzzi? Is he related to Todd Bertuzzi? I'm going to guess he's related to Todd Bertuzzi. And then maybe you could also answer, like, who do you like between Bertuzzi or someone like Gustav Nyquist, who's also on that line and on the top power play and has 3 points in his last 2 games. But it's also like Gustav Nyquist. Like, he's so boring to add. He's like, he's not going to blow you away. He's going to go on cold streaks. This Tyler Bertuzzi, it's an exciting name, and it's someone new.
Tyler Bertuzzi is the nephew of Todd Bertuzzi and the cousin of somebody named Tag Bertuzzi, which is really so close to Tage, Tage Thompson over in St. Louis. Anyway, you're asking me what? What do I think of him? I only caught the "is he related" part.
Okay, is he good? Should people add him? What do you think I'm asking you?
he's been pretty good in the AHL, 14 points in 16 games so far. Last year in Grand Rapids, he had 37 points in 48 games. Second round pick, 58th overall in the 2013 NHL entry draft. I don't know. It seems like, honestly, anyone on Detroit could or could not be worth your while. Gustav Nyquist and Henrik Zetterberg are probably the 2 guys who you are interested in for like most of the season. Dylan Larkin, I'll throw in there. He somehow has 32 points this year. Anthony Mantha is injured, which you just mentioned, so I'm excluding him from the list. Thomas Tatar comes and goes as he pleases. It's like, hey, he seems like a good stream because he's getting some shots and a point here and there, and then you stream him and he does nothing. This is not at all related to my own very personal experience with him over the last couple weeks. So Tyler Bertuzzi, sure, why not? He could be like any of the other Red Wings.
Okay, so you're saying you would probably take Nyquist ahead of him, and then guys like Mantha, if they haven't dropped, maybe even take him. But someone to watch. Tyler Bertuzzi, new name. Okay, Clayton Keller is hot again, currently riding an 8-game point streak. What's with this guy? He either gets a point every game, or he's on a long, pointless drought doing nothing. Like, why can't he just be a little more consistent? But anyways, now that he's on this hot streak again, the big question is it sell high time again? Like, anyone who had him during his amazing run to start the year was probably kicking themselves. They didn't trade him for someone good when he was completely scoreless, and we called him a snoozer and said you might as well drop him. Now he's like just as hot as he was before. Do you think he can keep it going this time, or do you think this is like the peak of his value and we're going to see another trough very soon?
Well, if you can sell him as a point per game player, then absolutely go ahead and do that. The good news for him is that all the points in this run have been primary points. So good for him. He's got 3 goals and a bunch of assists as part of that. And just checking out his shot counts right now, and they've been pretty healthy. He's got 23 since this run started. So that's almost 3 per game. He's had a 4-shot game, 5-shot, 6-shot game. If he's been back in free agency and you've got a spot to stream him in, go for it. But get a sense of what you're getting. You can't necessarily depend on this to last all year. But as we saw at the start of the season, maybe it could last like a few weeks. We'll see. We're still getting to know this guy.
Yeah, like obviously just because it happened before doesn't mean it'll happen again. Maybe now he'll be great. I wouldn't expect him to get points every single game again. Obviously the Arizona team is a little bit shallow and he doesn't have the best line mates to play with, but right now he's hot. Obviously he should be owned, and I don't know. If you have him, I'd be like shopping around and seeing what type of big names you could get for him while he's on this great hot run. Okay, Thomas Vanek has 2 goals and 3 assists. Had 2 goals and 3 assists back on Thursday versus Chicago, playing on the Besser Gagne line. And he also had a hat trick plus an assist in a game the week before. So that's now 5 goals and 5 assists in his last 5 games for Thomas Vanek. 10 points his last 5 games, buoyed by these 2 huge multi-point games. He was quiet for a stretch before that, but had a nice run earlier in the season. So it strikes me that maybe Thomas Vanek is like a streaky guy and he goes on runs and then goes cold, but clearly he's capable of giving you those big, like week winning games. So he might be worth an ad. I'm going to throw it out there. Like while he's hot right now, he's doing well. He's playing with Brock Besser, who is amazing. He's got 38 points in 36 games, over a point per game. I feel like he's the type of guy at this point that you want whoever's playing with him, and maybe not Sam Gagner though, but at least Thomas Vanek, if he's still available in free agency, he interests me right now. Not as a long-term thing, but while he's hot, like he's really hot.
I think I read in a Dauber Hockey Ramblings, I think that's where it was, that Thomas Vanek is streakier than a poorly watched window. And I very much agree. It's great to have him while he's playing with Besser and while he's hot. Don't be shy to drop him as he gets cold, though. Elon, what was there was a crazy trade proposal in our Facebook group that someone mentioned. Was it Vanek for Karlsson?
Yeah, but it was like someone got offered Vanek for Karlsson and they thought it was so insulting, the
guy was trying to back it up and be like, no, but like, look at how well he's doing right now. Like, you're not going to get him at this price in a week.
Okay, so if you have Vanek, I do agree that it's a good time to try to trade him. You might be insulting the owners if you're trying to trade for Karlsson, but go a little lower. Go for I don't know, Duncan Keith. I don't know. I'm just throwing a name out there. Anyway, let's go to another great hot streak.
You need to say throwing a name out there again.
Just Duncan Keith? I don't know. Just throwing a name out there. Okay, next hot streak. James Reimer is on fire for the Panthers. I mentioned him earlier in the show. He's on a 5-game win streak. I'm not sure what's happened today, but before today, .932 save percentage over the past month. That's 13 games. He's been great for a long time now. Definitely needs to be added if he's somehow still in free agency, I assume, right? Like, he's clearly also kind of streaky. He could go cold, but when he's hot, he's really good.
Who, Reimer?
Yeah.
Good. He's injured. I'm going to mention that. I was just collecting intel. He just got hurt.
Oh, God.
Yeah, for sure. James Reimer on a huge roll. 7 consecutive quality starts, playing above .930, posting above a .930 save percentage in 6 of those starts, .952 over the whole stretch, 2 shutouts as well, only 2 times where he's allowed more than 2 goals. So yeah, that's pretty good, I guess. A crazy run for James Reimer, which unfortunately has hit a speed bump at the very least, as James Reimer has been, just like minutes ago, left the game. Sort of a split in head situation is what I'm getting off of Twitter. And he had started all 12 games since Roberto Luongo got injured. Harry Sateri had not seen a minute of action. Now he is the #1 goalie, at least until we get more of a status from James Reimer.
Oh, dear. That's terrible. Okay, so yeah, well, if people are listening to this tomorrow morning, as I'm sure a lot of people will, in their commute to work or however they listen to the show, should they rush and grab Harry Sateri? Like, Reimer's on a 5-game win streak. That means Florida's on a 5-game win streak, which means Florida is doing really well right now. Like, assuming that Reimer's out.
What are you trying to say?
I'm asking if people should be rushing to add Harry Sateri.
Oh. Florida's been doing really well on the back of these James Reimer performances. Like, of course they're doing well when their goalie is playing as well as I just described his numbers were. I don't know that Harry Sateri can do that for him. Maybe they'll need to score more goals, which could be good news for someone like Evgeny Dadonov, who has not had a chance, or well, has not taken advantage of the chances he's been getting to make an impact since returning from injury.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, we'll have to look further. Definitely consider adding Harry Sateri now. I can't believe Reimer's injured. That's terrible. Okay, yeah, Dadonov, he's been brutal since coming back from injury. He only has 3 assists in 8 games. He was on the top power play, but he wasn't getting back on the top line. I'm seeing just in the chat room here, David just posted Dadonov back with Barkov and Huberdeau. So live breaking news. If that's the case, if Dadonov's back on line 1, power play 1, then I think now's the time to go and grab him back if someone dropped him into free agency. That's where I expect him to produce. That's a great line in power play to be on. So if you've been frustrated with Dadonov, check to see if he's back on top line, top power play. Definitely I'd hold on and see what he can do now that he's back in the good spot. In a similar situation, someone like Kyle Palmieri, who returned from injury but couldn't bump Jesper Bratt from the Hall in his sheer line, and he still hasn't, as far as I know. Palmieri is now pointless in 3 straight games, not shooting much. I was going to ask you, Brian, who's going to get on the first line first between Dadonov and Palmieri, as two guys who are both on their team's top power plays and were on the top line before getting injured. I guess the answer is Dadonov at this point. But what are your thoughts on Palmieri? He might have been dropped, or people are considering maybe dropping him in shallow leagues on this cold run. But are you confident he'll get back on the top line at some point?
I mean, he's not so cold. It's bad that he's off the top line, but he still does have 3 points in 6 games since coming back from injury. And a couple of those games, he saw under 14 minutes of ice time. So I don't think you can get too down on him. Of course, he was cold going into leaving from injury. So if you go back even further, which I don't like to do, and bridge the pre and post injury numbers, it looks worse. There's still some upside from him, though. I think you try and hang on. If there is someone like a Kalle Järnkrok out there, though, that might be a move I make if I think that I'll be quick enough to grab Palmieri back, because remember, he did start the year with 9 points in his first 10 games.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop Palmieri for Kalle Järnkrok. Palmieri did get close to 60 points last year. I think it was like 55, 58 points, something like that. But it is concerning that he's slow. But like you say, it's a short stretch. I wanted to bring him up. He and Dadonov seem similar to me. So now that Dadonov's back on line 1, maybe the New Jersey coach will be like, oh, that's a good idea. What is it? No, not Scott Stevens. Oh, it's the guy who's on the back of my jersey, Phil Housley, right? No, he's Buffalo. Who's the New Jersey coach? It's a player, right?
Stephen Hines? John Hines. John Hines.
Oh, why did I think it was a player? Oh, well.
Well, there's a John Stevens.
John Stevens. Okay.
And Scott Stevens was on the coaching staff. He might still be.
Okay. Okay, I wanted to bring up Cam Ward next. A lot of stuff that I have planned are kind of like getting blown up right before I bring them up. So Cam Ward seems to have taken over the #1 job in Carolina. I say that as I see that he let in 5 goals today against Washington, or maybe it's still in overtime. I don't know. Someone's saying in the chat room that OV won the game. So anyways, not a great game for Cam Ward today, though it was against the Washington Capitals. So maybe, people need to cut him some slack. That's a high-scoring team. They're the Caps, even though they do have Chandler Stevenson and Devontae Smith-Pelly on line 1. But still, yeah, not a great game for Ward. I'm seeing he let in 4 goals, maybe even 5 on 21 shots. So just a terrible game. But before that, he's been great. Going into today, he was riding a 6-game win streak. He had a .925 save percentage over the past month. And Cam Ward played 4 games in a row before Scott Darling played the second half of a back-to-back on Saturday. And Darling lost 3-2 to St. Louis and then 3 goals on 29 shots. So not a great game for him. I know you hate to say it, Brian, and maybe after today you'll have reason to delay saying it a little longer, but it seems to me like Cam Ward is the #1 goalie now on Carolina, and they're considering Darling as their backup. Maybe it's more of a 1A, 1B situation riding the hot hand, but at this point, Darling's definitely not the undisputed #1. That's for sure, because Ward's been getting all the starts lately, and Cam Ward has been good, but he is Cam Ward, and he did just have a bad game today. So, Brian, do you think that's it? And Cam Ward is done, or do you think people should still be rushing to grab Cam Ward because of his great month he's been having?
No, I don't think you should be rushed. Like, maybe if you need a goalie and you need starts, sure, go ahead and take that gamble. It seems like he is now in a tandem-y sort of situation where Darling is going to have to steal back the starts that we thought he was going to get all season long. But of course, like we've said, the longer you let Cam Ward ride in the chariot, the sooner it is that it turns back into a pumpkin or something like that. Am I mixing metaphors? In any case, I don't think I was, for the record. But, sorry. For the record. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is Cam Ward remains Cam Ward, Elon, as you just said. That's our Cam Ward analysis.
Okay, but at the same time, I mean, if you're in a league where just getting starts, and Carolina's a good team also. Like, I feel like you're being too, like, yeah, Cam Ward can't be relied on to, give you sterling numbers, but Carolina seems to be on a good team. Like I said, he was on a 6-game win streak.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. The thing is that Carolina is probably a pretty good hockey team. They just have not gotten goaltending. Well, even last year, they didn't get it either. And I just don't know who is going to be the one who gives it to them. Cam Ward has had plenty of chances to prove himself worthy over the last several years. He hasn't. I don't know. Why am I getting into this again? Whoever starts for Carolina is in a decent position to get a win if they can play average. We just haven't seen either of these two guys show that they can do that for a sustained amount of time.
Okay, and then for the Scott Darling owners out there, if there are any left, there was that game where they got destroyed by Toronto, and all of our patrons like, can I please drop Darling now? Feels like people can let go of Darling. Like, I know now maybe Darling will get the next game, and who knows what can happen, but he doesn't seem to be that good. I'm sorry. Like, he had good backup numbers in Chicago, but I feel like we've said this a bunch of times. He hasn't been able to be consistently good as a starter now on Carolina. Cam Ward took the job. So regardless of what you think of Cam Ward, is like Darling, I feel like if there's any like starting goalie available in free agency, like if you have Halak there who's been getting starts, or Varlamov, or like, you know, someone like Reimer, I was going to say, even though now he's injured. Anyways, I feel like I wouldn't want Darling. Like, I feel like most people can drop him. I feel like you've been the one person sort of saying that people should still hang on and hope for better, but I feel like it's really hard for people to do that when he's not even playing, and when he does play, he sucks.
Say when he's not even playing again. I don't know what's happening.
I know it's hard.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
What should I say? Where was I?
When he's not even playing, and when he does, he sucks.
Really hard for people to hold on to him when he's barely even playing, and when he does play, he sucks.
Yeah, I think my advice to hold Darling has mostly been limited to leagues where he would become the only starter or starter potential goalie to enter free agency. I did drop him. I added Anton Forsberg and then was very mad when Jeff Glass got the next 2 starts, but I've now dropped Scott Darling in that league. It was a limited moves league, which is another situation where I feel like you sort of are stuck with him for better or for worse. But even in those sorts of leagues now, it's getting close to the time. Although now that Cam Ward has had a bad start, we'll see where the Hurricanes turn to their next game. And if that's Darling, and if he has a good game, he's back on everybody's radar.
Yeah, but that might be a big if. Don't turn this into an Eddie Lack situation where you're just like, no, just once he gets his next game, he's going to be good, I promise.
Yeah,
okay.
All we need is for Cam Ward to fail, and then Eddie Lack is going to step in and prove himself to be the deserving #1 goalie. That didn't happen. I know.
No. Yeah, then Darling might be the same. We'll wait and see, but it's not looking good for Darling. Okay, a couple more before we end the show.
Before you continue with these, can I make a proposal? Because I'm really like, all I have to do for your next 3 guys is nod my head. How about you name a guy, I name a guy. We nod our heads at each other, we say good, and we keep going.
Okay.
That's the lightning round for me.
All right, so I'm talking about some interesting line combinations right now. Sam Reinhart was on line 1 and the top power play with the Sabres and Jack Eichel. So, you know, playing with Jack Eichel is good. Sam Reinhart's always been a guy for me where, like, I'm like, I kind of am interested in him if he's on top line, top power play. He's there right now. He had a power play goal yesterday in the Winter Classic. It's been useless before then. He had a long, pointless streak. But do you think he's worth a flyer now? Or at least, we're doing lightning round rules. I think he might be worth a flyer now while he's on line 1 with Eichel and Gergensons. Interesting, like Gergensons is there as well. So if you're in a really deep league, you could also consider him. But I definitely like Reinhart on the top line and the top power play. Nod or no nod?
That's a nod. That's a nod for sure. But like, you know, right? Like, you asked me the question and you could answer it. Like, he still is kind of garbage. Like, he has been in this position several times for like lengths of time over the last couple years and hasn't done anything with it. So no, I'm not like tripping over myself to add him to my lineup because suddenly he's got this great deployment. But hey, if you're looking to stream a player in, as you did successfully, Elon, last week, then he's in consideration in deeper leagues. How about Elon, Eric Haula, who has 26 points in 33 games this year? But what you might not realize is he has 12. What you might not realize is that he has 12 points in his last 11, in which he's taken 33 shots on goal. So 6 of them have gone in. That's a little high, but he is doing fantastic on the season. A lot of these guys have like 25, 26, 27 points in a mid-30s amounts of games, like Danton Heinen too. We've named at least 1 or 2 others on the show tonight who are just doing it so low-key this year. So Elon, would you prefer him to Sam Reinhart?
Haula? Yeah, I thought
Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you're the one who never wants to recommend Vegas guys. I want any of these Vegas
No,
guys.
don't you know I love Vegas?
They're awesome. Shout out to @RealKidPoker. Oh man, I'm blanking on his name now.
Daniel Negreanu.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know how to say his last name.
I know how.
Okay.
Shout out to @RealKidPoker, Daniel Negreanu, who tweeted at us. He's a famous poker player. It was very exciting. He tweeted at us. Fortunately, it was less exciting because he was tweeting at us throwing shade for how we're not giving Vegas enough credit. It's totally Brian's fault. I try to bring them up every week, and Brian shoots me down. Daniel, I'm with you.
I have definitely become more open-minded to, like, at the beginning of the season, I will cop to being like, this team getting lucky, no way. There's definitely something there, and it's very exciting, the amount of times that they're able to convert on their scoring tins. We had a nice Twitter thread going. I don't know if you can just search the two handles and find the thread. I'm not going to recap the whole thing now, but my conclusion is that Eric Halda's doing really well these days.
Yeah,
and so is Vegas. Good for Vegas. Great team. Great city.
Great for you to come around on the Vegas guys now that they're all owned by other people and none of them are available to add. Okay. I'll throw out Travis Konechny, who's been playing on line 1 in Philly with Giroux and Couturier, and he had an assist against Florida and 2 assists against Tampa Bay. So that's 3 assists in his last 2 games before today. I don't know how he did today, but that's obviously a great spot. Bad news for Wayne Simmons, who was on that top line. We were excited to be like, oh, finally, Wayne Simmons in a good spot so he could break out of his slump. Now he's back playing with Nolan Patrick and Jordan Wheel, which isn't great. Good thing he's still on the top power play. Simmons has been getting some power play points. He had 2 power play points on Friday, but he hasn't had an even strength point in his last 4 games. So I would definitely be concerned as a Simmons owner. Not sure what you could do about it, but Travis Konechny might be a good daily fantasy player or a flyer for as long as he's on that top line.
Is that going to be the new flyer, daily fantasy guy?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like, especially with these wonky weeks coming up in terms of the schedule, it's hard to recommend people long-term. I don't know. We have to check and see how many games Philly's even playing. If they're playing 1 game next week, I'm not going to say to hold Travis Konechny all throughout.
Well, here's someone on a team I can recommend who's playing more than 3, who's playing amongst them, who's on one of those 9 teams playing 3 or more games next week. Leon Draisaitl has been on a tear lately. If he's available, then I don't know why I'm being so tongue-in-cheek about this. It's just we need to give him credit for what he's been doing after having a not so great time, especially not scoring on the power play at all. He still hasn't done a whole lot of that lately, just 1 power play point in his last 7 games, but he's managed 9 other points to give him 2 goals and 8 assists for 10 points, 22 shots. So another guy who's getting more than 3 shots and more than a point per game.
Okay, breaking news. Leon Draisaitl is good. Though it's cool to see him getting so many points on not a great line. Who did I say he was playing with? Kajula and I don't even remember someone.
Yeah, well, so you're right. I'm burying the lead here, which is that he's doing this while not playing with McDavid and while not scoring on the power play. So it's not like a fantasy, this guy's even more relevant than before. It's like he's Brandon Sodding, is what Sod was able to do last year, scoring so many points at even strength without getting a chance to produce on the power play. You're gonna really like my next guy though. So you first, and then back to me.
Oh, is it going to be some really old player that everyone's forgotten about? I'm no, he's going to be good now. Okay, I'm excited. But I'll go first. Matthias Janmark is on a hot run in Dallas with 2 goals and 2 assists in his last 3 games. And it looks like he's on a pretty solid-looking line, too, for however long it'll last, with Spezza and Radulov. They brought Devon Shore back to the top line. They love Devon Shore over there, even though he does nothing. But Janmark on a hot run, playing with Radulov and Spezza, could do worse.
Yeah, a lot of people have cycled... Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, it's nice that Spezza also has someone to play with in Radulov, and Janmark is he's shown himself reasonably okay at being a middle sixer, if not, well, top sixer would imply that he's a top line player. I'm not sure about that. However, great to see him, Spezza, and Radulov together, and knowing that all 3 have somebody that they can score with alongside them. So yeah, he's a good deep cut. Elon, how about this for a deep cut? This guy is almost certainly available in your league, and he has 3 goals and 5 assists for 8 points in his last 11 games, 28 shots in that span, so almost 2.5 shots per game. His first name is Kyle. His second name is Okposo. Coming back on the fantasy radar, he has 2 power play assists also in that span. He was scoring all of a sudden he had a point every other game, and now he's on a 3-game point streak. So if you're looking to add someone who you're hoping might be able to sustain some production for more than a few games in a row, you could hope that Kyle Okposo is back. I'm not sure that that's exactly the case, but you could at least ride him and see for as long as this lasts.
Okay, I'm surprised why you think I'll be yeah, Kyle Okposo's at the top of my watch lists in all of my leagues. He's been dropped in all of them, and he's on a line with Evander Kane and Ryan O'Reilly. He's on a good line. He's on the top power play with Eichel and O'Reilly and Reinhart for sure. Yeah, I would take Okposo over Sam Reinhart. So there you go. I just said that I maybe like Reinhart as a flyer. Sure, yeah, grab Okposo. I'm with you, Brian.
Kyle Okposo or Kalle Järnkrok?
Kalle Järnkrok.
Kyle Okposo or Zach Parise?
Oh, Zach Parise.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, like, both of those are very reasonable takes.
Okay. Brian, that's it. Let's end it. This has been a mega awesome fun show catching up on these last couple of weeks. Sorry to everyone who missed their Keeping Karlsson fix. We had someone tweeted us, I think, that said that he lost his first matchup of the year in the week that we didn't have an episode, and he blames us. So apologies for that. But we plan on going every week moving forward for the rest of the season. We'll be here to help you into your fantasy playoffs and hopefully towards a championship. So thanks to everyone for listening. Obviously, like, Happy New Year, all that jazz. If you want to help us out, you can give us a 5-star review on iTunes. We really appreciate that. We got some really nice ones recently. And, we just want to say thank you to all of you who take the time. I know it's like, it's kind of like annoying. You have to go to iTunes, sign in, write a whole nice thing. Yeah, I know. But we really appreciate it. You can also just give 5 stars and not write a long comment. But either way, it helps us out. Okay, what else can I say? You can follow us on Twitter at Keeping Karlsson. We've got our Patreon program. So if you like the show, if you want to support the show, you could buy Brian or I a beer every month. You'll buy one of us a cheap beer at a bar, like, before tax. If you're up for doing us that solid, we're going to give you some nice perks. We're going to give you bonus content every week. I'm going to be doing an episode with Cam Robinson this week talking about the World Junior Championships and prospects. That's going to be really fun. That's going to be for the patrons. And we do our patron casts. Like, we do.
Hang on. Before you say, and we do our patron cast, aren't we going to release that like after 24 hours? Wasn't that the deal?
Okay, yeah. Maybe you can even get that episode without being a patron. But most of the bonus content we do is only for patrons. And you can get it extra early if you sign up as a patron in the next couple of days. Okay, and also we have our Facebook patron. And also we have our patron-only Facebook group and a bunch of other perks. You can check it all out at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. I won't bug you any more about it, I promise, though I have a feeling Brian will. Brian, why don't we cue that outro music? And why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
Okay, gladly. I just need to I didn't get the list of patrons.
There's a lot of patrons you could what's the opposite of thank?
Say goodbye to.
Yeah, we had a lot of patrons leave in the past couple of weeks.
I feel like
they were not in the holiday spirit.
Well, no, I think they might have been in the holiday spirit for like their own personal.
Yeah, they spent a lot of money on gifts and they couldn't support Keeping Karlsson anymore. I'll bet you it's probably
which is totally okay. Hey, by the way,
that's the nice thing.
We don't want anyone going to the poorhouse because they're like, damn. I gave my last $5 this month to Keeping Karlsson.
Yeah, and to be fair, that's one of the nice perks of becoming a patron is you could quit at any time, and all we'll do is maybe throw the slightest bit of shit. No, I'm just kidding. We appreciate all the support anyone gives us, and it's probably people that are like doing badly in their leagues, right? At some point, if you're in like last place, like, what am I?
So you are throwing shade.
I mean, if we've been helping you,
shade, I'm just kidding, but it probably is the people who suck at fantasy hockey the most.
Okay, just kidding. If you've stopped being a patron, we just thank you for all the support you gave us up to this. I'm not gonna put this in the show anyways. It doesn't matter. Maybe there's people who are
people watch. We got a comment on our last one a week or two ago where someone like joked that like lesson learned. What was it? I actually have it right here. Note to self: never criticize Elon or Brian's advice because they will torch you on the podcast, which was related to on a similar vein to this.
Yeah, well. Not on the podcast, on the live show. I like to think I could speak freely.
That we don't edit or shorten, and that is available to all.
Yeah.
Ryan, you're still in the chat. Did I thank you last week? I have you on a list, but
Brian, I still have to edit today and go to work tomorrow.
Okay. All right. I'm pretty sure I did. Oh, I think I did.
Oh my God.
Okay. I'm working on this.
Look, this thank you list. I guess people like it.
We've been through this so many times.
It's always the same also. It's like Mike B, John M, Kyle R. Like,
what do you think? Do you think we need a more diverse pool of patron names? Maybe we need to recruit more WHL players to our patron class.
Why? What's that mean?
They have a lot of crazy names.
Oh, okay. I feel like if your name is Mike and we say like Mike R, do you really like get that warm, fuzzy feeling that you like, it's like it could be anybody. There's a million Mike R's in the world. There's a million Mike R's listening to this podcast.
Wow.
I wish.
We say their names so like they know like we appreciate them. Like I won't say the full name, and then you're just like, well, thanks, generic name is what you're saying.
I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just like No, I don't even agree with anything
You're ready
I'm
to
saying right
go.
now. Yeah,
Here we go. All right. But I just minimized my window, so hang on. Gotta pull it back up here. All right. So wait, I'm reading the credits now?
I hate you.
Okay. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and supported by our wonderful, amazing, incredible patrons, including our newest ones, Dave G and Eric G. Thank you very much. We're happy to have you on board for our patron perks. It was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dobber Prospects, Corsica, The Athletic, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Natural Stat Trick, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Roto World, and Fantrax.
Great job, as always, Brian. We're going to have a quick turnaround since today is Tuesday. You're listening to this on Wednesday. We're going to have a next episode for you next Sunday. So tune in.
Oh, sorry.
Brian.
Next Sunday.
Next Sunday. So let me just shut up. Next Sunday. So tune in, keepingkarlsson.com/live. You can join us every week, 8 p.m. on Sundays.
And don't forget, we have our FanDuel contest coming up. Well, I don't know when you're listening to this. It runs Thursday night, so sign up before 7 p.m. Thursday night, fanduel.com/Karl. And until then, but you haven't told me good job yet.
I think I did. Okay. That's Karl. Okay. Good job, Brian. Bye, everyone.
Until next time, keep on keeping Karlsson.
It's going to be a hard one.
Why?
Hard edit. So many mistakes.
Really?
Got a big, long list of mistake times. So
All
well.
right.
All right. What's been going on in hockey? Who's injured?
Oh, Reimer's back. Reimer's back.
Should we put that into the show?
Yeah.
Okay, one sec. And by the way, one last quick thing: James Reimer's back. So everything we were saying about Harry Sateri, don't go grab Harry Sateri. Reimer's back in the game. Brian, you made people nervous for no reason.
No, it wasn't for no reason. James Reimer was removed from the game, and then he came back to the game.
Cool. Bye.
I hope that was true.
Oh my God! Please verify.
I
think so. Anyone in the chat room want to chime in?
Yeah. He came back. He was back on the ice. He was out for less than 3 minutes of game time. Okay. But Sateri still gave up a goal, did he not?
It looks like he did.
Wow.
It's hard. Being a goalie is hard. I'm sure these guys shoot the puck really fast.
I think we should have a whole podcast just talking about that.
Yeah. People would be like, they would stop listening, or at least for me, like I have zero hockey knowledge in terms of actual, techniques of playing hockey and like how to do a good wrist shot and how, the proper way to do a body check. I would be really shitty in those conversations. I'm just like, it looks tough. Like they're skating so fast and shooting so hard. What a talent. Anyway, what are we talking about?
I don't know.
Shut out the Leafs. Washington. Okay, what am I gonna do? Just a run through of the scores? I'm really curious to see all these scores. So I guess I could do this on my own time. Brian, what's the deal? You're on vacation right now, or what?
I'm not on vacation.
I thought you're on a break. Like, why didn't you have work today?
Oh, I'm on vacation. Well, like I'm on a mandated vacation. This is not a personal vacation. I would work if they let me, but they won't because I work at a school.
So you could use the time to chat with all of our patrons. I'm sure they'd love it.
I've been doing that.
I know, so it's great. We all wish you could be on vacation all the time. If only we could get enough for you to full time
permanent vacation, Brian. With pension, I would love to have a pension included too. If we could include that in the goal.
How do we make it so that with our patrons contribute to a pension? Like then they'd have to keep contributing after we stop making episodes, right?
Yeah, but then maybe we could have a patron pension. Maybe that could be a perk. If you're a patron of the show, we all pay in and it pays out. How do pensions work?
I don't know. I feel like we might end up losing money on this. We have to be careful.
The trick is to not put our real names anywhere.
Right. All right. Let's go. Bye, everyone. You'll do the doc?
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Have a great night. Welcome back.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone in the chat room, by the way. You guys were all really funny. You distracted Brian. but it was worth it, I guess.
You won't think so while you're editing, but
Yeah.
I think it was worth it. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Good night.